man speaking in the city square, trying to tell somebody that he cares. Can you blame the voice of youth for asking what is true? Yeah, the ones that you're calling wild are gonna be the leaders in a little while, when will the lonely voice of youth cry what is true? This our world's waking to a newborn babe, and I solemnly swear it'll be their way. You better help that voice of youth find what is true. And the lonely voice of youth cries, what is true?
All right. Welcome in, everybody. We are here on another Friday with pirates because our pirates. And it's Muppet Madness because there's lots of Muppets and the world is quite mad. And so I want to talk about that today because that's what we do. We talk about Muppet Madness. The world is getting crazier. Not less crazy, more crazy. I had the misfortune of hearing about Daryl Cooper on my crypto call. I was like, yeah, I don't listen to him. He doesn't know history. Very disturbing, very disturbing. As usual, Daryl Cooper's kind of a nutbag. So yeah, it's a crazy world. But I have my Sampal, thankfully. I have some more in my Muppet cup. Have you considered? You should. You should consider. I've got this lovely London fog tea that my lovely friend Sanjuro got me. Do miss him. Miss a lot of people. We're missing a lot of people lately. And I got my captain's mug full of some mint tea. So we can dive into the Muppet Madness. There's so many crazy things going on now. And it's not, I mean, it's just getting worse. Listening to a conversation that John Vervaeke did with Jordan Hall and some other guy. I don't remember his name. And the level of sheer buffoonery and made up terminology, just mind boggling. And so I threw it into the AI, hoping the AI could do some yeoman's work for me. And the AIs are like, no, there's no contradictions here until you ask it very specific questions. And it's like, oh yeah, that's a contradiction, that's a contradiction, that's a contradiction. I'm like, okay. So the AIs are very friendly to the video. And I'm like, I don't know why this is dumb. I haven't tried all the AIs. I just tried Google stuff, Gemini, Notebook LM to be specific, because that one's really easy to do. But I was like, why are these things so friendly? Like, this is nonsense. If we're going to use AI for anything, it should be vet all the garbage on YouTube. That would be great. And some of you will know this, some of you will not. I had a conversation with Mathieu Peugeot that will be coming out on the channel. It was by far the best conversation I've ever had on these sorts of topics. He is just awesome and the most wonderful person ever. And, I do love his book. Right, there's his name at the bottom and everything. And we did a 40-part book club on it that you can see on Navigating Patterns. It's quite a good book for many, many reasons, although it's a little bit hard to understand. He talked about his next book that's coming up. He talked about, he he gave away at least one thing he thinks he's never said before. So I was like blown away by his generosity of time. It's a 2-hour conversation roughly. The video will be a little bit longer than that because we'll have a clip and the intro and all that. And it kind of wandered sort of all over the place. But it was a great conversation. I hope to have another conversation with him. I think it will be wonderful. Um, but we'll see. He's going to hibernate for the winter, which all good Canadians should be doing right about this time because winter's coming, and winter's nasty up there. Let me tell you. Um, I don't know how my ancestors survived, but they must have been really hardy stock to do so. So yeah, and one of the things that sort of came up for me in that conversation, because we don't really have a clear topic, so it's more what's floating around in my head, and like I said, there's so many things going on. Um, what makes something good versus what we remember? Because our memory seems to be split up kind of differently. And I think this is part of the reason why we're struggling with meaning as such. And the memory thing came up because Pedro said that we had a memory for important things. And I was like, wow, I've never thought about that. But it certainly seems to be true. And so we don't remember the rational argument. We remember the emotional argument because emotions are the things that are supposed to give us that peg to importance. You hear rustling in the jungle, emotionally charged, right? All that happens before you rationalize or even get the information to rationalize. We know this. Experimentally, we know that there's two parts to our brain. We have a lizard brain, a reptile brain. And that reptile brain reacts. It doesn't consider, it doesn't grab detail. Your reptile brain just reacts and responds immediately. And that's what's being hijacked on the internet. That's what's being hijacked. And people say, oh, these people are just, trying to get, yep, yeah, they're trying to get your emotions. Right. Because that hijacks your brain and it gives you a sense of importance and you remember that importance and you respond to that importance. And so we have a memory of sorts for importance as such that is separate from our memory for events as such. And I think that's really important to understand and realize is that that dichotomy exists within your memory. And maybe there's more than two parts, right? Or two aspects to how you remember things as such. But I think that's really important. It's important to understand that that is the case. It's important to realize that that interaction is possible, that maybe your memory uh, works through importance. And if that's true, right? If that's a useful way to think about it, we'll say, because I think that might be more to the point, right? Is this a useful way to think about this? Then that has some pretty interesting implications, right? It has some pretty interesting implications. And I've been sort of thinking through that ever since our conversation on Thursday, um, Thursday afternoon. I've been thinking through that, but obviously I haven't had a lot of time to think through that. And then I've been seeing some of the things that have been, you know, we'll say prescient in the world or happening in the world or going on in the world. And I'm seeing this relationship between this importance, which I think John Vervaeke would call relevance realization, or at least that's the closest thing to it, and how people are responding to the world at large. And I think that's a better way perhaps to understand all the craziness that's going on. I mean, why are people in my crypto group talking about Daryl Cooper in the same breath as Ken Burns? Ken Burns is an excellent documentary filmmaker. Daryl Cooper's a psychopath with research skills, I guess, maybe, who's never read a history book, apparently. Um, at least, he didn't seem to know any history anyway. So why are these things tying together? What else is tying together? I heard Critical Drinker, I think it was today's video that he put out. And basically, they're starting to come to the same conclusion, use the same language about the things that are going on. They're starting to come to realization that the people that run movie studios maybe don't look at the quality of films or filmmaking, or they don't have that same view or that same understanding. And so they're like very simplistic in their reasoning. And I think that's right. People are very simplistic in their reasoning. And the fact that you don't understand their reasoning doesn't mean it's more complex than you understand. It means that it's more limited than you're aware of. That's actually what's going on. And I think people are really confused by that because they're looking for some grand rationalization that explains things. But the world is not a rational place. There might be rational pieces to it, but those pieces, when combined in and of themselves, the combinations are not rational. They're quite irrational. And by definition, they would be in any formal system. That would be true. This is mathematically certain. So it always puzzles me that people don't understand this. I'm like, well, actually, in a mathematical system, that wouldn't work. Why do you think it would work in the world? Like, it's worse in the world, not better. And I think that's why we see the madness. That's why we see the chaos, because we're looking for a type of order, and that order is logic, reason, and rationality. And then we think that humans are logic, reason, and rationality driven, and we're not. Our memory itself is based on importance, right? It's based on emotion. And so we're looking for this logic, reason, and rationality in the person or in the group, and it's not there because they're not even seeing the same world. When you have $100 million, you don't worry about the cost of groceries. I actually knew somebody when I was younger. This kid's father was like a executive at Ford, I think, because he was from Detroit. He was going to school in Boston. And I don't know how it came up, but somebody mentioned laundry. And he said, I don't do laundry. And we're all like, what that doesn't make, what do you mean you don't do laundry? And like, do you have someone do your laundry? And he's like, no, I just buy new clothes every week. And we're all like, what? What do you mean you buy new clothes every week? And his girlfriend's like, yeah, we go and buy new clothes every week. And I'm just like, I don't even understand that. Like, I don't have a way to rationalize that. What are you talking about? You buy new clothes every week. I saw a picture once of his guest house. His guest house was larger than any house I've ever lived in. And I had a good sized house in Massachusetts. I had a 3-bedroom house. With quite a bit more space than just the 3 bedrooms, we'll say. I can't relate to that guy. Like, how would you relate to somebody who grew up like that? How do you relate to somebody who's never been to a laundromat or used a washing machine? But there are people like that out there. And there's not a lot of them, we'll say, but like they're out there and they have more influence on the world than you do. Period. End of statement. It's not going to change, by the way. Nothing. The internet is not changing that at all. And if you think it is, you're an NPC and you're part of the psyop. I'm sorry. I hate to break it to you, but you're really not understanding the world. The way people grow up and what they grow up in and how much influence that conveys to them is not going to change. No technology is going to change that. because people think like, oh, YouTube gives me reach, and well, YouTube has the potential to give you reach. Obviously, you still have to manifest that potential, and you have to get lucky to some extent to do it. But also, these these idea of reach, it just doesn't, like, Paris Hilton made way more of a splash than anyone on YouTube. And that's because of how and where she grew up and what resources she had at hand. And a lot of the people on YouTube are copying people who are doing this as a hobby because they have access to lots of money and resources. And those people don't have access to lots of money and resources. They don't have, more importantly, the right connections. So if you know a journalist in an influential magazine institution, automatic viewers. And maybe you'll get lucky and you'll meet one and they'll do an article on you. Sure, that can happen. But the people who already know those people, and if one of them watches my thing and then right, like that can happen. But like the influence isn't with the creators. The influence isn't, and it's not to say they have no influence or don't have outsized influence, but the real influence that really moves things is not in the technology. It never has been and it never will be, and it can never be that way. And the problem is you can move all the people on the bottom you want, but that doesn't shift the top. And also the amount you're moving people at the bottom is inconsistent and small. And people don't realize that, right? Like if you're trying to move a lot of people, it's very hard to do. And if you're not above those people, but you're actually one of them, you're not going to be able to move them consistently enough because you can't see above them because you're not above them or you're not far enough above them, right? And you probably don't have the resources and you probably don't have access to the levers of the existing momentum. And when you don't have access to existing momentum, you're just limited in what you can do. And a lot of the madness, a lot of the chaos, a lot of the weirdness that we're seeing is just us projecting our idea of a rational world on an irrational world where attention is mediated by emotion, not by logic, right? I've had a lot of people tell me, "Oh, Mark, your video quality, if you improve that, you'd get more viewers." And I'm like, "Okay, logically, that can't be true. Can't be, cannot be true, right? Because until somebody watches your video, they don't know the video quality. So unless you have a lot of people dropping out of your video, and that can happen for a lot of different reasons, doesn't matter, right? Your video quality doesn't matter. And then you look at the people who've had the biggest YouTube channels, their video quality was terrible. So obviously, it just doesn't correlate. But no one ever looks at the data. They rationalize from their own personal, private perspective, which is middle out thinking, which I have a video on, by the way. And then they try to draw conclusions about how the world works. And again, they're seeing a world that may be full of rational actors with a limited perspective who are acting rationally given what they know or see, which may not make any sense to you at all because you may not see the world that way or know the things that they know. But that doesn't mesh because you have a different perspective and you just don't know how limited your perspective is or what their perspective entails. And I think people are finally figuring this out. Finally. But we'll see. Sally, I thought you'd like it. It's quite a sophisticated setup, let me tell you. There's all kinds of things going on here. We've got different sound dampening and everything. So yeah, hopefully the sound's a little bit better too. Yeah, I've got so much going on with the lights. There's lights everywhere in this room now. So I might have to tone down one of them. I didn't experiment with the ring light in front of me. I could do that. Not going to do that today because every time I touch the camera, it moves. So one of these days, I'll get a better camera. So yeah, I mean, I think the madness is due to our personal expectation about how the world should operate, not matching how the world operates, and then us not realizing that means we're the idiot. And the problem for me is all this stuff makes perfect sense to me, and it's everybody else panicking. And I'm like, well, I don't know what else you would expect to happen, but pretty sure this is what I expected was going to happen. So I don't know. And my buddy Ethan, and I love Ethan to death, he points out this thing where guy was released from prison, early or whatever, wasn't sent to jail or whatever, and killed a 6-year-old kid. And the father was like, if I find him, I'm going to kill him. And I'm like, well, I don't know what people expected. I talked about this when the guy shot the CEO. You're not addressing the problem. You're going to get justice. Justice is going to manifest. If you don't manifest it in a controlled fashion from a centralized location, in a way that manifests justice, which we don't have a justice system in the United States. We haven't for 15 or so years, at least that I know of personally from my own personal experience. You're going to get people enacting justice on their own because the justice system isn't providing justice. Justice is a feature of the universe, so it will manifest. The problem is if you don't implement justice correctly and carefully, you get very bad results, but you still get justice. Right. It's just that things build up over time, right? If you don't take care of things, they entropy, they get worse. So if you continue to let bad people out into the world over and over and over again, eventually you get a bunch of murder. One way or the other, you're going to get murder. Right. And that's the problem, is that by releasing more and more bad people into the world, you get more and more bad results over time. And eventually that builds up. And then there's a shift or a kairos. See my live stream on kairos, because we had one of those. And then everything changes again. And you have the accelerationists who, and they're all dumb, right? The accelerationists all think, well, yeah, this one event is going to tip things back in the favor of rationality. And it's like, no, that's never going to happen. Rationality is something people have to work to manifest. Rationality is not a feature of the world. Rationality is a feature of human control. And that's the problem, is if you don't realize that, then you're not going to understand what you need to do in the world. I was listening to Vervaeke and Jordan Hall, just like these guys. Like I really don't know what's wrong with them. I guess we all have to pray for them because I don't think there's any hope for them figuring it out on their own. They're just like, well, yeah, this, and the meaning crisis, and the meta crisis, and the meaning meta crisis, and the meta meaning. And, they're using these terms, which apparently they stole from some other bigger idiot. It's voluntary. So voluntary compulsion or something. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean? Like these terms don't go together. Like a voluntary necessity, that's what it was. I'm like, you can't, either it's a necessity or it's voluntary. Like those are mutually exclusive terms. And maybe some quote wicked smart person put those two words together, but that just means he doesn't understand how to wield the English language. That's all that means. It doesn't mean he's smart. It means he's stupid, actually. Like you just can't put those two words together. There's no such thing as voluntary necessity. That's a dumb way to talk about the world. Either it's voluntary or it's necessary. It can't ever be both, ever, because the definitions of the word are mutually exclusive. It's not that hard. It's like agnostic atheism. There's no such thing as an agnostic atheist. Like you can't just smash two words together and get a coherence. And then they go, well, yeah, the meaning crisis. I'm like, the meaning crisis is caused not in full, but in part by people misusing the language and causing conflict in thought that doesn't need to exist. It's freaking Hegelian synthesis antithesis, thesis. No, no, all of that is wrong. Like, this isn't that hard. No, wrong. Made up term, opposite of made up term, combine. Okay, in the physical world, when you do that, like if you take matter and antimatter, you get an explosion. You don't get a higher order thing. You get destruction. When you do that with language, you get the destruction of coherent thought. You get a lack of ability to comprehend. And that lack of ability to comprehend, because we're cooperative creatures and we want to comprehend what other people are saying, spreads in your brain. Because you have two choices. Either you can be like me and reject it and go, these people are lunatics, which very few people do. They go, oh, he's a PhD and we've got a YouTube channel, or oh, he's having a conversation with other smart people or whatever. Right. And so you try to make it work in your head. And maybe you find a way to hold the balance of the conflict. But that's not good for you, because that's what causes, or one of the causes of the meaning crisis. Of course, you can't find meaning if you're combining the thing and the opposite of the thing, or if you're combining two things with a fundamental mutually exclusive conflict built into their definitions. You're going to be all floaty. And the next thing you know, you're not going to know good from evil. And then you're going to be confused. Well, we're letting everybody into our group. Can't let everybody into your group. If you think you can be ecumenical and let anybody into your group, I got news for you. Satan's real, guys. Like evil, the concept, let's say, oh no, Satan's not real. It's a religious concept. Fine. Evil is real. It's an actual experience that you can have. So if you're letting anyone and anything into your group, guess what's going to happen eventually? Just over time, as a function of statistics, evil's coming to visit your ass. Now, I'm not a fan of evil. Maybe you are. I'm not here to judge you. But like, I'm not a fan of evil. Don't do that. We don't need evil being comfortable. We don't need to enable that garbage. And the question would be, I see you let anybody into your group. How do you know they're not evil? Oh, and then they can't answer that. And the same goes for trolls. Like, oh, I see you let anybody in your group. How do you deal with trolls? Oh, like, it's not bad to let anybody in, but it's bad to not have a criteria for throwing anybody out. You gotta have boundaries. If you don't have boundaries, you're enabling evil in all cases with zero exceptions. Sorry. And maybe you're not around long enough that that happens to you, right? But still, that potential is there. And the longer your group stays around, and it's only a group, it's not a community. If you don't have a way to throw people out, you can never have a community, ever. The trolls alone will prevent that. But even if they don't, like, you don't have a community because you don't have an identity. And so you can't rally around an identity when all you have is a group. And groups form spontaneously all the time. Group formation is the least interesting phenomena ever studied in the history of mankind. You can go out in nature and you can see rocks grouped together from water flow. Oh, okay, there's a group. Every group is not a community, right? If they were placed there randomly or they just ended up there by accident, obviously not a community. This isn't that hard. And if we mistake things like groups for communities because somebody just used the word interchangeably because they're sloppy, be precise in your speech, as Jordan Peterson says. Then we get confused. And then we get no boundaries. And then evil comes in and we welcome evil in. Welcome evil to our door. Sounds a lot like how Jordan Peterson explains Cain and Abel, huh? Indeed. Indeed. I wonder if there's something there. And it's a lot of the problems we're seeing. It's just our misunderstanding that other people who are at different parts of the hierarchy see the world differently from us. They see different things, entirely different things. Their concerns are different, right? What are they concerned with? Are they concerned with going to the laundromat, or do they just buy new clothes whenever they feel like it, like my friend? Imagine being in college and never having had to do your laundry ever. Never even thinking about laundry. Like, just buy new clothes. You throw out your clothes once you wear them once and buy new. That's what he did. To this day, obviously, I still can't believe it. That was so many years ago. Like, totally. Like, what the hell? I can't relate to him. Not possible. He was a funny guy too. He's also a complete jerk and a manipulator, but whatever. I don't really hold that against him necessarily, but also he did what he did. Um, yeah, and to some extent it wasn't his fault, uh, but I couldn't relate to him, and we can't relate to people who run movie theaters or movie studios rather. We don't know why they're making their decision. Why would you make a decision to hire Kathleen Kennedy and then keep her on failure after failure after failure after failure? Well, thing is, the fans feel the failure because it's financial, but people with money don't feel financial failure because they have money, right? In the same way, like I had a friend, still a friend of mine, smart guy, PhD, MIT, Money, right? He's really smart. And he's a former roommate of mine. He's a pretty interesting guy. Actually smart, not like these John Vervaeke clowns, and they're not smart, not compared to him. I was talking to him once. This is around the time that there was a dust up around the basketball team, and the guy who had the basketball team had to sell it, and he was being unreasonable. He wanted $2 billion for his stupid LA basketball team, and my buddy was like, "Oh yeah, Steve Ballmer's going to buy the team," and I'm like, "Ah, makes sense. Steve Ballmer's got $20 billion." And he was like, "Well, he must have a way to make money with the team." And I'm like, "All right, let me explain something to you, son. Sports teams can't make $2 billion ever, like over the lifetime of owning a team. Like it's never going to happen. Certainly not basketball. Basketball is not a very profitable game. Sorry, you just can't pack the stadium. Like it's a tiny venue, basically. Um, and back then in particular, although that this was right at the turning of that, because now it's not true anymore, but like nobody ever made money on sports teams when I was young. Zero sports team owners made money. The only people on sports teams were people who are already wealthy, and like they wanted to show off to their friends. Well, I own a Bentley. I own the Red Sox. It was that was actually when I was young. That was actually what happened. you know, John Henry bought the Red Sox. Well, why did John Henry buy the Red Sox? Same reason he has a yacht sitting at the freaking Boston hotel doing nothing all the time. Huge yacht, beautiful boat. What a gorgeous boat, right? Because he could brag to his friends about it. That's why. It wasn't to make money. Although the Red Sox is actually a profitable team. Back in the day, it was the Red Sox and the Yankees, only two teams that ever made money in baseball, ever. Every other baseball team lost money. All of them from the beginning, right? Because it wasn't a money-making venture. It's a hobby for wealthy people who can afford that hobby. Like I can afford to buy models and put them together. That's what I can afford. They can afford to buy sports teams and brag to their friends. I can brag to my friends about my models. Fair enough, right? It's a different scale, and it may seem really different to you because maybe $100 million is a lot of money to you, but $100 million to them is a Tuesday. John Henry probably actually made $100 million in a week once. I mean, whatever. These people don't, and the fact they're not worth whatever, that doesn't mean anything. You don't know what people are worth, especially not in New England. There are people in New England I know for a fact are way wealthier than a bunch of people on the Forbes list. And then they're not in Forbes. Why? Because they knew Forbes and they got themselves taken off the list. Because you didn't know that. Oh yeah, you can get yourself taken off that list. So the Forbes top 100 billionaires or whatever, That is not a full and complete rational list of the people who are actually worth that much money. Oops. Oops. I bet you didn't know that. Oh, by the way, the Forbes family owns a bunch of islands off of Cape Cod. Yeah, a bunch of them. I sailed past all of them once. My buddy's boat, it, his boat, his boat's a broken down, dirty piece of garbage. But beautiful catamaran, very fast, very fast. We pissed off a couple people, not that day, but a different day, off of Cape Cod, outside of Martha's Vineyard. I'm very blessed. I know some interesting people from being in New England, living in New England for years. Those people do not act like you and I. We were on our way down to Cuttyhunk Island, which is a weird island off the Elizabeth Islands, I think, are all owned by the Forbes family, or most of them. And we're going down there, and like, there's the guy's plane that he lands on, the little plane that he lands on the island. I'm like, oh, I guess he's too special to boat to his island property. So he just takes a plane. Hey, I can't take a plane. I never really, I mean, I might have, if I had ever had the money, I might have gone and been a pilot. That's another hobby. I had a buddy of mine, he became a pilot. You know, he became a pilot. This is hysterical. So he was doing flight simulators and all that. And then one day I got this job offer. And actually I got 2 job offers at once. And one of them was for a contract. And one of them was this full-time job at this reinsurance company. And I said, do I want to work for a reinsurance company? And they loved me. They absolutely loved me. They were going to pay me a fortune. They're going to pay me a small fortune. And like, it was actually a really good deal. Like, they're going to pay me like $130K a year. This was way back. That was a lot of money way back. It was a real lot of money. It was like 230 nowadays. So they were going to pay me like $130,000 a year. And I had this ridiculous bonus plan where I'd gotten like, I don't know, 12 grand every year in bonus. And they fly you to Bermuda 4 times a year because that's where the data center is, and all this nutty stuff. I mean, it was a fantastic. They took me out for steaks and everything. It was great steak. So if you want to get to me, buy me a nice steak at a high-end steak place. So ultimately, though, what happened was these other company, which is a smaller company, they said they were a startup. They weren't really a startup, but they were a smaller, interesting, hungry company. But they had a problem they wanted to solve. And I had been thinking about that particular problem on and off for a couple of years. And the problem was, the problem, they didn't put the problem this way. They didn't understand what problem they had. They just described to me the conditions and I knew what problem they had. The problem was basically, can you write an engine that would on the fly reconfigure your software because you didn't have the software requirements ahead of time, but you needed to do the upgrade right away? And I was like, I didn't know if that was possible because I had never like, oh, can you do that? It turns out you can. I did it. You know, there's some caveats to it, obviously, because you can't fully automate something like that, but it was automated enough that, you know, their install time went from 4 days to 4 hours. I was pretty upset. I was like, we should have been able to do it in 2 hours, but whatever. They were thrilled. So I took that contract and I gave my buddy the reinsurance job. Now, they didn't pay him what they were going to pay me, but they paid him a lot of money. And because they paid him a lot of money, he decided that he was going to finally actually take flight school lessons, which he was excellent at because he spent so much time playing with flight simulators. He's also one of these guys who works on his own cars. He works on his house. Like, he's crazy. He's a good friend of mine from back in the day. I knew him originally from the bulletin board systems, and we kind of reunited at Dell, or Equalogic, actually. Equalogic, and then Dell bought them, but we used to call it Delalogic. Great company, actually. Equalogic had a fantastic product. Dell killed it because they're retarded, but I really enjoyed my days there. But yeah, after I left there, this job offer came up and I gave it to him. And also, when he was at Dell, I got him into tech support because they had him in the IT department. I'm like, bro, you need to come to tech support department. Not only will you make more money, but your job will be easier. And the IT job was going to go away anyway because Dell was going to absorb all the IT people into their end. And that, Dell's in Texas. We were in New Hampshire. Like, what, It wasn't going to go well for him. I knew that. So I convinced him finally, no, get over here. And he got on a media bump. He probably 10, 15K a year or whatever. And that made a big difference. But then when I got him that job, that made a huge difference. It like practically doubled his salary. He was absolutely thrilled and he took up flying. And that was now his hobby. And even I could never afford flying, as a hobby. I just couldn't. There were times when I probably could have pulled it off, but it was just too expensive a hobby for me. Wealthy people buy sports teams for hobbies. Wealthy people start crazy businesses just to see if they'll work for hobbies. Wealthy people in New England used to buy freaking TV stations and radio stations and newspapers. That's what they used to do. And I knew some of those people, not directly, we'll say, but like you could follow them. Like, Clear Channel Communications. I was up in their headquarters once or twice. Yeah, and that's why the world doesn't make any sense, because the people up there are doing different things. I read about something today, I don't know how true it is, it's a quick Twitter thing, and you know how reliable Twitter is. It's about as reliable as chaos itself. But they're claiming that, there was some deal with Israel and a ceasefire in Gaza and all this crazy nonsense I don't really care about. And the deal got changed at the last minute. And Trump was like, well, let's just push it through, because he's probably tired of dealing with that situation entirely. He's already well aware, and he's made it clear and actually said this publicly. In fact, he was caught on camera swearing that the two sides are both nuts and they both lie. And he was like, then any deal that we can cut is better than no deal, because they're going to break it anyway. What difference does it make? Now everyone's all pissed off and they're like, oh, they changed the deal and blah, 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 blah. And, that means, but it doesn't mean any of those things. It means that Trump knows that both sides are liars and they're not going to conform to the deal. And it's a total waste of his time. And so you might as well push through a deal to get the announcement to the American people, we cut a deal. And then when they break it, it's not his fault. Right. And he doesn't have to support either side. He can say, you know what? They can't stick to a deal. There's nothing I can do. We should just get the US out of there. I hope that's what happens. I'm not saying that will happen. I don't know. But you and I, we don't understand necessarily how those backroom deals go and what these people are seeing. I've watched companies. I've been in on C-suite meetings at large corporations and small corporations, right? I've watched people just make these wackadoo decisions, and it actually ends up working. And I'm like, that's never going to work. And then it does. And I'm like, wow, that's weird. I didn't expect that to work, right? Totally take out entire sections of the company. When Dell bought EqualLogic, we had the best product on the market by far. We could compete with EMC. They were the big dog. We could actually compete with them. There's some argument as to which product was actually ultimately better, and ours was certainly cheaper, and it was at least on paper faster. We had some scaled deployments that were pretty large that seemed to be way faster than EMC. There's a lot more infrastructure involved because EMC is like single connect and we were multi-connect, but with much cheaper equipment. But if you set it up right, which wasn't a trivial thing to do, but it could be done. Like it wasn't hard. We could compete. What product did they kill? Because they bought one of our competitors at the same time, and then they had their own offering in the storage space, and they killed our product. I'm like, you morons! And the thing about EqualLogic storage array, which I have one of, by the way, in my shed, I've fired it up a few times. It's quite an impressive machine. By far, probably the best piece of hardware I've ever had the pleasure of working with. I mean, it was brilliantly designed, absolutely brilliantly designed. And the woman who ran that company left and formed another company called Data Robot, I think. Complete disaster. She didn't take the right engineers with her. The success was not in the CEO, I can tell you that. I liked her a lot. She's an interesting person. Also, was not the magic behind that company. And a lot of companies are like that, right? You get one talented guy. I worked for another company. Brilliant product. What we called it AI, it was not AI. What ended up happening with that product was they had some problems. It was it was called System Wizard. It was Windows 95. And you clicked on the picture. When you had a problem with your computer, you click on the picture where you thought the problem was. It would ask you a few questions, and then it would either fix the problem for you automatically. Okay. This is back in like 1996. Okay. Would either fix the problem for you automatically or give you the steps to fix the problem. And often it would do a little bit of both. It would fix what it could. And right. Now there was a problem with the way they were using this because it wasn't true AI. It was very close. It was machine learning for sure, but it wasn't true AI. But it was very smart. I fixed the problem that they had. Right. And I was a contractor, and they didn't offer me a full-time job. I got pushed out of the company, which was fine by me. Um, the main guy who was friends, they were both Northeastern grads, or the three big people in the company were Northeastern grads. And then they had a meeting with me where they would constantly drag me into meetings for whatever stupid reason. I'm like, guys, I'm just a tech basically working on a thing. Now I was the lead knowledge engineer. That was my title in 1996. I might know something about this, by the way, this knowledge thing. I was dragged into a marketing meeting, and I was like, no, guys, you're selling the product wrong. You need to sell it this way. And the marketing chick was like, aha, I told you. And I was like, oh, okay. So she knows how to sell it. It's the techie guy or the CEO, because they were the other two so the CTO and the CEO, they were the guys who didn't understand. Actually, it was the CEO who didn't want to sell it that way. The CTO knew, so he liked me. So the CEO, for whatever reason, was talking to the head of development. Now, my group wasn't part of development. My group was part of the knowledge team or the AI guy. So we had a PhD from MIT AI guy, even though we weren't doing it. He was always telling me like, yeah, this isn't really AI. My paper was on blah, blah, blah. I forget what his paper was. He was a really smart guy, actually. He's really cool. I like working with him. He didn't get along with the head of development. The head of development didn't like me because I would constantly go to developers and say, hey guys, we got this little problem. And if you just did this, this, and this, it would fix it. And they didn't like being told what to do. Unfortunately, I was always right and they were always stupid. And that's not my fault. Maybe they should have figured out what the hell they were doing. Simple things like SQL queries, they just didn't understand it. And they just wouldn't accept help. I'm like, guys, I have to do a job too. If your software doesn't work, it makes my job hard, like what the hell? And I'm just trying to help them, right? Like really. So they sabotaged me. Because they sabotaged me and other reasons, I'm sure, the CTO also left. That company dissolved, but it got sold. So they didn't lose any money. They didn't make a fort. That product back then, even that product today would be huge, especially marketed correctly. Would have been huge. Would have been huge. We could have shipped it with every Dell PC that went out. Dell and HP, I think, were the two we were looking at. Although I think we had a contract with Packard Bell, which I think later got bought by Gateway. We also were talking to Micron and the guys who made the Voodoo card. Like we had monster cards back in the day. But we had deals with all these big companies, all of them. And the CEO, I think, screwed up the deals or whatever. Something went horribly wrong. They had everything in the palm of their hand, and they just screwed it up. They just screwed it up. And that company dissolved. No one lost any money because this other company bought it. Actually, that other company they had a job opening. I tried to apply for them and I didn't get in, which was interesting. Yeah, it was a weird, like, that's how the world works. Those guys didn't care. The CEO, I know where he lived. He lived the town over from me. And I saw his house once, and it's gorgeous house. And I think he had a Mercedes. He had a Mercedes and a pool. I mean, this place was pristine. It was right off the main road too. It was right off Route 20. It wasn't, it was a road off Route 20. His house wasn't on Route 20. No one's house was on Route 20. But it was right, boom, you just take a left and he was right there on the right, right on the corner. Beautiful, beautiful piece of property. Sudbury, very expensive town. My town was not. But one town over, I think he was 4 miles from my house. But I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know why he didn't listen to his buddy from college. They had started previous businesses together. But that's also what they did. I met another guy at this other company where I was telling you before about the contract. he worked with these guys and he was telling me all they do is startup hop. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? And he's like, oh, they know these guys who do startups and they just work for them. And they do their startups and their startups fail. And then they go do another startup and they hire all the same people. And I'm like, you are freaking kidding me. He said, no, every 3 to 5 years they get a new job, but they're working for the same guys. And I'm like, what? That's insane. Like I was a contractor. I'd never heard of this. Wish I had done it. I would have had a lot more money. But yeah, I mean, these people, they travel in packs. They know each other. They have the same connections. That does a lot more for you than your knowledge or than your skill set or than anything else. And nothing can make up for that. So where and how you're born and what connections you make in life. And this is what puzzles me today. When I was growing up, I was told the reason to go to college is not what you learn. They told me this explicitly is not what you learn, the connections you make. Now, I was looking at college going, this is a dumpster fire waiting to happen. I was probably 10 years too early, but I was like, this is a dumpster fire waiting to happen. And to be honest, like the money wasn't there for various reasons. So I was going to go to college anyway. Even if I had wanted to and been like really committed, that wasn't going to happen. So after that, like more recently, people were like, oh, you go to college to learn things. And I'm like, that was never what I was told, ever. I was told you go to college to make connections, not to learn things. Like, yeah, you also learn things, sure, maybe. But you go to college to make connections. And it's the connections that do the magic. When you don't understand the world, it's because you don't understand the connections at that layer of the hierarchy that you're looking at. And you're probably looking up. Although you could look down and go, well, I don't understand why people live in bad neighborhoods and do this, right? I've been through bad, like I can walk through any bad neighborhood in any city and no one will touch me. I've been to bad neighborhoods. I've met people in bad neighborhoods. I've been friends with people in bad neighborhoods. It's not a big deal. I know why they're there. Makes perfect sense to me. I understand why they don't move. I get it. Usually they get it too. Like they understand the situation better. Because as I said in my more recent video about hierarchy, the animation one with the pyramid, the people near the edges of the hierarchy have a better sense of where they are in the hierarchy. And now that we have a large middle or middle class, those people have no sense of where they are in the hierarchy. And they're trying to make sense of the world from their own personal, private perspective, believing that other people see what they see. So if you listen to, you could probably do a sampling of the Critical Drinker clips from his videos that he's doing with other people. And I bet if you go back about 2 or 3 years and you just sample a few of these when they're talking about a particular, well, do the Star Wars ones. So the way you're going to hear them modify how they talk about the Star Wars franchise and the problems of the Star Wars franchise is going to move from, don't these morons know their audience sort of statements, like don't they understand their audience, to don't they understand the basics of movie making and storytelling, to don't they understand the economics involved. And finally, with today's video, these people don't see the world the way we see it. So you can hear the transformation in their thinking about what's going on, because again, the same thing's happening over and over again. They're making terrible movies. They're making terrible movies. They're making terrible. Why are they still trying to fit Rey into the story? Like, don't they understand that this girl is poison to this franchise? No, of course they don't understand that, because they don't see movie making the way you see movie making. First of all, the Critical Drinker is a published author. He actually knows storytelling. So when he this is why I listen to him, because he does movie breakdowns, and I don't agree with everything he talks about or anything like that. He's missing a bunch of pieces, but he knows his stuff. And when he talks about lack of character development, he knows what he's talking about, because he's an author. He's a published author. He knows how to write. I haven't read any of his writing, but I can tell that he knows how to write. It's not that hard to tell. It was interesting too, because in that latest one about Star Wars, One of them said, "Well, the nice thing about England is you can always tell where where someone is in society. They only have to say one word. You can tell from their accent." It's like, yes, that's true. That's still true in England today. In America, we don't understand this so much. In New England, it's a little bit more clear. Boston Brahmin, received pronunciation, things like that. It's not totally reliable. I have a friend, she speaks in received pronunciation. She's from Southie. Uh, she drops into Southie every once in a while because normally she speaks in received pronunciation. She drops into Southie, and every time it kills me. It totally kills me. I'm like, how? How can you do that? She can't do other accents either. She can only be Southie or received pronunciation. That's it. Which is also weird to me because I can do all kinds of accents if you need, or if you would prefer a more refined accent, I can also accommodate. So, like, I'm not used to people because most of the people I grew up around could do accents too. My mother could do accents amazingly well. Um, she can only do two. She's got Southie and like grew up on the street Southie, not even like middle class Southie. Definitely not. And she's got received pronunciation, which I can't even do received pronunciation. It's so haughty toddy. I can't even go there. So you end up with an appreciation for the hierarchy that a lot of people don't seem to have. Because you can hear it. In England, you can just hear it. In the US, we don't. Unless you're, like I said, you're from New England, maybe you're from some place that actually has more of a distinction in the accent. And then the assumptions people make, like especially down south, although I was never fooled by this, the way the Southerners talk and they say y'all. Y'all is an improvement to the English language, by the way. It's like an actual improvement to the language. Don't be downplaying y'all. Very important improvement. They're the smart ones. And the South is bifurcated. Like the average IQ down here is atrocious in South Carolina. But the people who aren't stupid are really smart. And that's why the average IQ is as high as it is. Because let me tell you, the dumb average, like if you cut the average in half, right? And then you retook the average of the highest and the lowest, you would get a variance, basically, is what you'd get two more averages, right? But you get a variance between those out. It's much higher down here than it is up north. Much, much, much higher. Because that low IQ number is very low. And that high IQ number is actually relatively high. And there's only two buckets. And up north, there's more than two buckets. Very close to a better way to map it. People don't know that. And until you read American Nations by Colin Woodard, or at least have an understanding of the difference between private and public Protestantism, you don't understand the fight between North and South as well as you need to. And we don't understand the differences. And I'll tell you, I was listening to Universal History. They put out a new one on, American magic, folklore magic, or whatever. It's quite good, by the way. And the more you hear about the Reformation, the worse it sounds. Just the more information you get, the worse it gets. And that's one of the major problems. And I don't think, again, because we don't have an appreciation, we don't have an understanding for how bad and how different things are for different people. Like, people just see the world vastly differently. Vastly differently. And it's bad. It's bad because we're trying to eliminate the hierarchy. And the more we try to do that, the more mixing we get, the more people we put on YouTube, the worse everything gets. The correlation's perfect. It's a perfect correlation. And people don't like that answer, so they deny it and they blame the culture war, which isn't a war and isn't about culture. I have a video on that. They blame anything. They come up with these complicated, ridiculous ways of thinking about the world that are so complex that they're insane. Instead of just recognizing, no, you're just wrong about how equal people are. The variance in humans is amazing. Now, I always had a sense for this, mainly because my father is red-green colorblind. And absolute merciless, no mercy for him. Like every time he screwed up red-green, we'd jump all over him. He jumped all over everybody else. So he has a PhD in English literature of all things. Oh yeah, when he used to get the language wrong, that was always fun. Because then we could go after him big time. So I understood why this guy actually can't, like, I experienced somebody not being able to tell the difference between the color green and the color red. So I understood, oh, wow, people have a high variance. Like, he has to experience the world differently. Like, when he looks at a stoplight, he has to know, is it the top light that's on or the bottom light? Because they're the same color to him. And he hides it really well because people get around things really well. Right? They get around their disabilities, their variances very well. But you don't know how other people see the world. Two people watch a movie, they don't see the same movie. Speaking of movies, I think, and you guys will have to tell me what we're going to do here. I'm going to do the Matrix thing next week. Next, probably weekend. Yeah, probably on the weekend. I'm thinking of doing it live. I think that's the right thing to do so people can jump in. And I'm just going to take the material that I have and work with that and see where it goes. So if you think that's a good idea, let me know. Either in the live chat or in the comments. But I'm going to get that done. I want to try to do it before I go for Ireland. So this month's going to be tough because I'm going to be in Ireland attending a wedding of my good friend Adam, who I do my history videos with. And maybe we'll record a history video when I'm out there. I would like to. I don't think we're going to be able to, but it was a nice thought anyway. It was one of those thoughts like, oh, maybe we could do this. It'd be cool to do it together in the same room. So yeah, let me know what you think about the Matrix video. Let me know if you want to join in, that sort of thing. And we'll try to get that done before I leave. I got to record a bunch of videos. I didn't get any done today. Although now that I'm on enough drugs, anti-inflammatories are wonderful things when you have an inflammatory disease. All right, that's enough ranting for this evening. Yeah, we live in a tension of contradiction because it helps us buy lies. Well, yeah, to some extent, that's actually way more true. We get used to building relationship with people our age until college. You end up unable to relate to different generations. I don't know, Adam. I mean, I think that the issue is more when you're on your own, you need to learn to have relations outside of your family. Because in a family, you get certain affordances that you don't get outside the family. KL, John Vervaeke schooled Jordan Hall, that's not hard, in their convo, is an apex genius depending upon the topic. Okay. Those two are both retarded. I hate to, like, actually, I have a lot of experience with John, and Jordan just basically, like, pooch screwed. And I was like, bro, I'm trying to help you, and you're acting like you know something that I don't. Which clearly isn't true in this case. Yeah. I mean, yeah. The problem with Vervaeke is that he's got an ego the size of New York City, and I mean, that was his excuse for why he didn't take our model seriously, because we brought it to him. Like, he was our teacher. I'm still upset that I lost my teacher because John was a wonderful teacher. You know what John isn't? A wonderful anything not teacher. Right? That's part of this problem. A lot of this problem is people are just doing things outside of their area of expertise, and they're applying their area of expertise outside of the area of expertise which is a category error according to their stupid science, by the way, and they don't even see it because they're all dumb. That's what I call dumb. You don't want to talk about things rich people do because you end up sounding like that's the best you could do with money. Well, I don't know. Maybe it is. Who cares? It's not. Money is not magic. You can spend $1 billion and get nothing. So, and people with money know this. They're like, well, what do you do with money? Well, you know, what do you do with anything? Like, what did I do with my tech knowledge? I did a lot of hobbies around tech. I mean, I built all kinds of cool stuff, right? Like I had a 50 machine lab in my basement. And that was years ago. Like that got dismantled 12 years ago or 13 years ago or something by this point. And that had been running for years, decades, actually. So, you know, like I did that with my computer skill. They do the similar thing with money because that's what they have in abundance. You've got an abundance of computer skill. You're going to build fun computer stuff. You're going to do, right? You have an abundance of money. You're going to spend it on fun things. Like it's not different. It's the same pattern. But you don't recognize it because you have less money, so you think that's important, and they have more money, so they don't think it's important. It's just a difference of importance. Sally Joe, knowing how extremely different people experience things is relevant to navigating patterns of life. Yes, exactly. Exactly. And also staying at the level of patterns, because you can't look at what a wealthy person does. Like again, Steve Ballmer. I had to explain to my friend with a PhD, Steve Ballmer is worth $20 billion. $2 billion on a stupid sports team is 10% of his wealth. Any human being on the planet pretty much spends 10% of their total wealth on a luxury item. Anyone, I don't care how little money you have, you could have $100. You'll spend $10 to go to the movies. It's the same pattern, actually. It's the exact same pattern. I won't even get into all the weirdnesses about finances. Well, he's not going to give him $2 billion. He's going to get a loan for $2 billion. And then like the total cost of this thing is going to be like $2.4 billion. Someone's going to get $400 million for loaning him the $2 billion so that he is actually making more money than $2.4 billion, even if it's not on the team. Because when you have money, you can leverage money to make money. Like that gets complicated. Let's just do the simple math. Right. And people with money know that. That's why, as Sally Joe knows, you read something like Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, where he gives you an education about the difference between things like cash flow, and wealth, which are three different things that have no overlap. The wealth is not tied up in how much cash you have, right? Your cash flow is tied up in isn't tied up in how much cash you have either, right? Your cash flow is tied up in how much money is flowing through the system, right? There's lots of companies, like I worked for Nokia for a while. They were like, oh, we're a $4 billion company. And I was like, Microsoft could buy you tomorrow. Microsoft has like $110 billion in the bank. I was like, Microsoft could buy you and not even think about it. Like, we're a $4 billion company. I'm like, you guys lose $400 million a year. Lose $400 million a year. So your company may be worth $4 billion, but your cash flow is negative by $400 million a year. They didn't get it. They're like, Microsoft isn't going to buy us. Year after I wasn't contracting there anymore, Microsoft bought them. Like, they were clueless. And a lot of people are clueless because they don't understand how these things work. Fair enough. They don't even think of the world the same way. That's why the world doesn't look right to you, because you don't understand those people. Adam Dillon Major. Also, rich people sometimes buy ships to sink them. Rich people do all kinds of weird things, dude. Like, you wouldn't even... Yeah. Oh, what's that actor's name? I can't remember. Maybe it'll come to me later. I got a story about that. Connections I made are not people, but rather pipes between my notions of the world to design my fallbacks. If you say so. I don't have any fallbacks. What else do we have? Debt towards youth is that parents own thing you need to maintain after you, so better take good care or sell it. Well, maybe. Um, People used to work to go to college. Radar O'Reilly. Excellent. Excellent. I've been waiting for the Matrix forever. Yes. Well, I will do the Matrix thing. What is this? Green siren, green siren. Oh, I know where that's from. I see. Bees. Indeed. I like bees. Thank you. What is this? I am having a great day. Thank you from Rumble. Look, if you guys want to chat about the Muppet madness going on, and there is quite a bit of it, then I will let you come in if you're willing to come on camera and chat, so long as you behave yourself. But any sort of whatever mad thing that you want to, talk about, as long as we keep it civil and stuff, feel free to jump in and join in. And yeah, I'm going to do the Matrix video. It's going to be a lot of fun, I think, for people, hopefully. It's one of those things, like, it's a lot of work. Some of the work was done. I don't think Jesse will be able to join me, unfortunately, for whatever weird reason. Boy, we've lost a lot of people the past year. Poor Sanjuro. I'm drinking the London Fog that he bought me, which is lovely, by the way. That's in this cup. It smells so good. The London Fog tea smells really good. Yeah, Sanjuro. Michelle's no longer with us. I don't know where the hell he went. Jesse doesn't seem to be around anymore, and that's sad. But that's part of the madness of life. Things change and move and shuck and jive, and you got to look for the stability. I'm trying to find a way to do videos. Mathieu Peugeot talked about some interesting stuff that's going to come out that I was like, yeah, that's the sort of thing, right? These are the sort of examples. And I always struggle with examples to get you guys some of this bad behavior. That's why when I do those videos, like my critique of Eric Weinstein, or the one on James Lindsay, that nice monstrous 4-part series, like that's really where I break things down and show you, no, these guys are ridiculous and the stuff they're saying is stupid, and I'll break it down pretty much sentence by sentence to show you. But doing that in a recorded fashion without an example up front is really, really hard. And maybe someday I'll understand it. But yeah, it's so difficult to do that sort of thing. So I've been trying to come up with ways. I was talking with Peugeot about this. I was like, yeah, I need to take notes when that happens. I'm thinking of, like, maybe one of these days getting Plod. Have you guys seen Plod? Plod is great. So it's a thing that you wear basically, and it records everything you say and then summarizes it with AI. And I'm like, that would be cool, because then I could take notes and I could drive around and take notes. And because I used to do that a lot. Like, so in the early days of Discord, I would be driving somewhere and I would be like, hey guys, somebody write this down. And then they'd write it down for me while I was driving, because I had an idea and I was in the car and I couldn't stop and take notes. So I'd just, yap away. But those toys cost money, and that is in short supply at the moment because the world is crazy. Although I have potentially restarted one of my projects, and we'll see if that goes anywhere. And the patent's just slow going, although in the next week or two, we should find out more about that. I've got my ears to the ground. And then my other AI project is actually going gangbusters right now, but we're still a ways away from monetization, which is too bad. But yeah, we did a test and it was passed with flying colors. I was like, yeah, I knew this would work well. And the good news was I didn't have to do any work, so that was even better. It's nice when you can buy someone else's tech and just know that it's gonna do a thing that it wasn't designed to do, but it's gonna do it well, and then it works. It's like, "Oh, yeah, that was a good prediction." Actually, I gotta check. I was well, maybe my buddy's busy. I thought he'd get back to me today, but he didn't. But I mean, I sent out the message today, so it's one of those things. Oh, what do we got? RJ, welcome, RJ. Any thoughts or tips on what to do when surrounded by Muppet Madness? Yeah, look, man, like local, 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 head down. Deal with the things that are closest to you because those are the things you have the most control over, you know? And that's actually a better way to go. I don't know why people get obsessed with worrying about like Israel or Ukraine or the latest thing going on with the Kardashians, or I don't even know what the latest things are, or like Taylor Swift getting married, or whatever nonsense. I guess she she tried to bargain with the NFL, and the NFL was like, "Hell no, goodbye." And then and like, yeah, well, I know what I'm worth. It's like, yeah, but you don't know what you're worth to the NFL. The NFL has more money than you, sweetie, and they don't care about you at all. Taylor's was an interesting case, right? Like she was like this nice, wholesome girl, and now she's a slut, and it's just awful. It's just too bad. But pop music sort of kills you, and yeah, I think when we get absorbed in what's going on outside of ourselves, you get anxious and feel helpless because you're helpless. That- you can't prevent your favorite sports team from being sold to John Henry. Uh, the whole story around the Red Sox and sales. RJ, localize and focalize, folks. I like that. Yeah. Yeah. The thing is, people spread themselves out with things that they can't do anything about. And then they get nervous. And in that nervousness, that exaps out, to use some Viveki language, that definitely exaps out. Like when you get nervous, you get more nervous. And the more things you have to be nervous about, the more nervous you are about more things. And that's just not good for you. And that sort of gains momentum in your system, and it's not good for you. And a lot of anxiety is just caused by paying attention to things that are too far away from you and not being able to accept that things are going to happen that are out of your control. And most of the things that happen in the world are happening completely out of your control. And knowing about them makes it worse, not better, right? It's not even that more knowledge doesn't help. More knowledge almost always makes everything worse. And it's everything. It's not just the thing. Because the more knowledge you have to stuff into your head, the less knowledge and attention you have for the things that you have control over. And so it takes control away from you of the things you have the most control over at the same time. And somebody posted something on Twitter about theology, and it was Michael Martin. And he was like, these people in theology don't even know about some event that I don't know anything about because I don't even claim to be a theologian. I think unless you've been in a monastery for 20 years studying theology, you're not even a theologian. And if you say you are, look, a lot of times, like I'm very polite, but when somebody says like they're talking theology or something, believe me, my brain shuts off. I mark them as a retard and I move on with my life because I'm like, whatever, dude. Like whatever it is and it's not that I'll stop talking to them or anything, but also like I'm not taking people like that seriously. There's no way I can. Like if you haven't been in a monastery for 20 years studying theology specifically, you're not a theologian. And I'm not going to listen to you on the topic. Period. End of statement. Good luck. And if you try to make everything theology, which a lot of those nitwits do, and they're nitwits, because everything is not theology, I'm not going to pay any attention to you. I'll be polite to you, but really, I'm not listening to you. And I think less of you, definitely. And I will continue to think less of you until you straighten up, because that's how it works, right? You have to change, and then my attitude will change. My attitude's not going to change because you want it to, though. That ain't going to happen. RJ, one need not understand everything to function well enough to help others and be better. That's a good point. That's a good point. And that is the main motto on this channel is the world needs you. So, be better and be better. The world needs you. right? It works both ways. And you can't do that if you're busy paying attention to a bunch of things that you don't have any control over. That you will never have any control over. And it's not like you don't have some hand in them or you can't have any influence over them. But if your influence gets wiped out by one statement on the TV by Donald Trump, maybe put your time, energy, and attention somewhere else. Right? Because clearly, if somebody has that much more influence over the thing than you, your influence really isn't important, even though it exists. And I think because we don't see quality, because we don't see gradient, everyone's talking in binaries all the time. Everything's, either thesis or antithesis, right? Or everything's either, either you're on the left or the right. Like everything's like that now. If you listen closely, everybody's putting everything in a binary. Okay. Somebody who puts things in a binary, irrespective of their IQ or level of education, is retarded. That's an idiotic thing to do. It's an error, right? Now, you have to do that to talk to certain types of people, right? So I get that part and I use that often. I often say, like, I feel terrible that I have to talk this way, but here it is. Like, I'll just give you the caveat up front. People that talk in binaries do so because they're stupid. That's the only reason that they do that. Okay. They're not going to, and then they're going to complain about a lack of nuance. No, you're the lack of nuance. If you think there are conservatives online telling you things, you're missing, you've never met a conservative. Conservatives would rather die than go online to try to influence random strangers. First of all, those are the dirty, unwashed masses to the conservatives. I'm sorry, but they are. And the reason why the conservatives think that is because that's technically correct. If you're influenceable online by online things, the conservatives, A, aren't going to win that battle, and B, don't want you around anyway. These are uninteresting people to true conservatives. There are no conservatives online. I'm sorry. There were never any conservatives on TV with very few exceptions. The last conservative that I'm aware of to ever actually go on TV was William F. Buckley Jr. Go look at him, hear how he talks with received pronunciation, right? And listen to how he talks about things. Okay. That was within my lifetime. It wasn't that long ago. And he was on PBS. Oh, how interesting. Why PBS? PBS is where wealthy people went to have a hobby. Right? And then one pastor who was excellent also used that system. But like that was like you got to understand. Like I grew up in Boston. PBS started in Boston. Like I knew like I went to PBS events. I watched a lot of PBS when I was young. Right? PBS was wonderful back then. It's terrible now. It was wonderful back then. Why? Because guys like Bob Ross, who were basically retired, had enough money and wanted to do something cool, could use the PBS system and do something cool like paint and show people how to paint in a very simple way, right? That would make them happy. And most of the people who watched PBS were other wealthy people looking for hobbies because they had nothing to do during the day, or they were young kids who had nothing to do during the day. And for some reason engaged in PBS, which was available in Boston in spades. We had 2 PBS channels because that's where it started. And yeah, it was government funded hobbies for wealthy people that also helped non-wealthy people. It's a good project, or it was. It turned evil at a certain point. And that's the problem. If you don't understand where that came from and what it was really for and how it operated and how it got corrupted, then you don't understand what's going on. They had a thing called PBS Now, worst PBS show ever, out of New York City. No coincidence, because New York City is evil. Everybody knows that. RJ, social media only makes it look closer to you. That's right. Social media is flat. Everything online is flat. Go for a walk and see if you still care. Well, that's a good advice. Yeah, go for a walk, see if you still care. Beyond God, transatlantic accent is not exactly RP. There's some debate about that, Yon God, but maybe. They're very close in either case. Uh, I it depends what you read. I read that transatlantic and received pronunciation are basically the same thing, but a lot of these things come down to opinion because accents are not an exact science. Categorizing accents, like what's the difference between a South Boston accent and an Irish immigrant accent? Because they're not the same, but they're pretty much the same, right? And then South Boston had three. South Boston had three distinct enough accents. There was the off the boat accent. There were the people who grew up there poor, and there were the people who grew up there who were not poor. Right. It's all Southie to me, you know. But also I knew. I'm not sure I would still know, but I probably. I mean, I was pretty well steeped. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure I would know, but I might still know exactly which one it was if I heard somebody. You know, and also accents are really ephemeral. Like you go to South Boston now, you're not going to hear the same Southie accent. It's like the Southie accent I grew up with is gone, and that's why like you watch Good Will Hunting, and you go, well, Robin Williams didn't do a good Southie accent. It's like, no, actually he did. It's just you're retarded and you've never been. Right. See, he actually did nail it. But a lot of people complain he screwed that up. I'm like, no, he didn't. Sorry, you're wrong about that, and that's part of the problem. Um, Young God, I like Wikipedia's entry, Northeastern elite accent. Yeah, I mean, it's Boston Brahmin accent for sure. Absolutely. I mean, my friend, she, long story, we don't actually know the answer to. She was in a boarding school, unlike her siblings. She went to a boarding school in Western Massachusetts. That's how she picked up received pronunciation. And I was like, what? What? Because I wonder, I'm like, you grew up in Southie. How the hell are you talking like this? Because nobody in Southie was in the Boston Brahmin, that's for sure. Well, it's not entirely true. Like I said, there's a wealthy Irish accent. But yeah, it's because she went to boarding school. And I was like, you went to boarding school? Like, holy crap. Like, why? How? Why? What's up with that? And yeah, there's a long story there. And I don't think she knows the entire story, but whatever. There's all kinds of intrigue. Families have intrigue. Families are awesome. They're nothing like what you think because we have this TV idea of family, which resembles real families approximately not at all. That's approximately not at all. And no, exactly in no possible way, even for a minute. Yeah, yeah. And that's the problem. Adam Dylan Major, the native accent shows up when you're angry. Native accent shows up all kinds of times, actually. The problem with me is I don't have a proper New England accent because when I was born, we moved to Kansas. So I don't say barrel and car correctly for a New Englander off the top of my head, except if I'm talking to my uncle for a while, for example. And then I come on here because I've done that before. The New England is all over the place. And it also depends what I'm talking about because my accent changes based on where my memory is at. And like I know all this, right? And who I'm talking to. Because if you'd like, we can we can do this as civilized individuals. Or I can drop right back into my normal street, sort of relaxed. I I can do any it does if you want, I can get all Southern hospitality like on you. It's possible. And then this is the way the sort of lower class speaks, but like whatever. Like you know, I'm not as good at it as I used to be. I used to talk to a lot more people from around the world a lot more often, which doesn't seem correct, but actually is quite true. I can't wait till I get back from Ireland because I'm gonna renew. I had an Irish accent, earlier in my in my youth there, but I'll get it all back when we spend time in Ireland. So I'm looking forward to that. Although the Irish accent, even the Irish, is like lame now. I'm like, God, you guys don't even talk Irish no more. What the hell? So yeah. RJ, the etymology of madness traces back to Middle English. The word mad itself emerged from the Old English gemade, meaning out of one's mind or foolish, indeed. Um, yeah, I think the problem is the world is mad. But it's not really the world that's mad, it's that we're dumb and we're not understanding the world that we're in. And instead of blaming ourselves for our own deficit and accepting our own deficit, we blame the world for being crazy. Because it doesn't make any sense. Why is Disney still hiring Kathleen Kennedy? Why didn't they fire her? It's a good question. It's a really good question. Why did nobody at Nokia, that at the time I was there, had a former Microsoft executive as their CEO, not understand they were going to be bought by Microsoft? And then give me a financial excuse that made no sense according to any set of numbers that was available publicly for looking up on the internet. Like, they just didn't know what they were completely convinced, like, Microsoft could never buy us. I'm like, I'm almost certain Microsoft had $110 billion in the bank in cash at the time. They had a huge stockpile of money, and Microsoft was known for buying companies. They just loved to buy companies, and they were known for wanting to get in the cell phone business. They announced it a million times. They had already tried twice. Them buying Nokia was their third foray into the cell phone business. And the good news is, here's the funny part. So they buy Nokia, right? And in the deal, they pay a lot of money for the whole company, but they don't buy the whole company because they don't want parts of the company. This is always the case when people, well, not always, but this is often the case when people buy companies. So I think the management team or something like cut a deal to get all the networking equipment. Guess what part of the company was profitable? Right. Nokia had screwed themselves out of the cell phone business by pissing off Qualcomm. And that meant they couldn't, their phones wouldn't work on Verizon. And Verizon at that time was still rising in the cell phone industry. They also, because they had bought Cellular One and the CDMA technology by Qualcomm. So Nokia pissed off Qualcomm. Qualcomm basically said, you're not licensing any of our technology for your phones. We're not selling you chips, which was weird. Nokia had a huge business. It was just all outside the US. Like their India business when I was there was huge, and had this phone called the N9. And like every employee got an N9 and an AT&T plan. It's part of what they do, right? So they're just paying AT&T a lot of money. AT&T is paying them a lot of money. Whatever. This is how rich people cooperate. Whatever. I don't know anything about it. So the N9 phone to this day is better than any other phone I've ever had. Like to this day. And that was like, I don't know, was that 2012 something, 2010? I don't know. It was a long time ago. Excellent phone. It's a fantastic phone. I love that phone. It was great. Also, the people that ran that company were retarded. Like just universally, every group, every possible, like every dumb thing you could think of. And I was just like, how does this company make any money? Like at one point, they found out they were competing with Google with stores, because that was back when every cell phone company was trying to build their own Google Play store. So they were all trying to compete in the store business. Nokia may still have a store. Like Samsung has a store. They have a Galaxy store. They have two, a Google store and the Galaxy store on my phone. Whatever. I don't care. It's kind of cool. So Nokia had a store. Their store had been broken into for a month, and they found out the store was broken into. And the way it was broken into was somebody went to the server and logged in from a random point on the internet as root. And I was like, what? How is this possible? Like, because first of all, the SSH port should not be open to the internet. And they had a whole security team in the company that if you deployed anything internally or externally, they had to audit the machine. Well, apparently their audit missed that. Now, on top of that, they had a network team. The network team was supposed to scrub all the IPs before they reallocated them and do special scrubbing and special checks for the IPs that went directly to the internet and not the internal IPs. Apparently they screwed up too. And thirdly, like, why do you have root access open to SSH on a computer, on any computer? Because by default, when you install SSH, it's not open. Like you can't log in using a root account on SSH by default. You actually have to go in and like change a setting to make that happen. All of these errors came together. No one got fired. Guy was in there for a month, took everything out of the store, copied it all. So all that stuff was pirated online somewhere. And like nobody lost their job. And I'm like, I would fire everybody in your security team and everybody in your network team tomorrow. Every single person that works for them, from the top down, the VP or director or whatever, all the way down. Bye. You guys leave. Like this isn't even working. Like I don't even know. Then you get rid of the developers. The developers had put the machine in place themselves, which was not the policy of the company. The policy of the company was guys who work for my group would have put the machine in place. The DevOps team. The DevOps team was supposed to do all the deployments into production. That's why you never let programmers anywhere near your production, because they'll do dumb stuff like that. And again, they had all these checks and balances that should have meant that even if the developers did something dumb, which they weren't even supposed to do by company policy, it wouldn't be catastrophic. Nope. They managed to make it catastrophic. That's what they managed to do. It was unbelievable to me. I couldn't believe it. And they got bought by Microsoft a year later, so who cares? I got this fun video of some Microsoft execs saying some users don't want to touch their screens, iPhone. They want a keyboard. Well, that's certainly true. It's just that users of cell phones and users of computers are different sets of users. That's actually why we have all the problems with web display versus phone displays in software engineering, because those aren't the same audience. Like everybody treats people like they're people, and it's like, no, audiences are vastly different. And I can't stand touchscreens. Not that I never use them. I use them on my Chromebook. My laptop doesn't have a touchscreen. I hate touchscreens. They're handy on Chromebooks, though, to be sure, and they're cool on tablets, and I'll use them. But I hate them. I can't stand doing stuff on my phone. They're very inaccurate. Oh God, everyone's touchscreen. Everyone's touchscreens. Everybody, no, they really don't. Programmers don't like touchscreens at all. Like anybody who programs a computer, most programmers, see, this is the funny part. So you had all the AI coding tools, and first they started out in VS Code, and then like Cursor, like did their own version of VS Code with AI built in, right? You had Tab9, you had all these guys, right? And then one day, Anthropic comes around, and they go, we're just going to do a command line tool. And Cloud Code is awesome. It's still awesome. I mean, it goes up and down because all of these AI tools, very flaky. They go up and down. Some days they're great. Some days they're like, what are you doing? Right? Like, wait, why don't you know how to code anymore? Like we did this yesterday and you did fine. Everybody's got a command line tool now. Why? Because programmers prefer the keyboard. Right? Also, there's a different class of people that doesn't like the touchscreen and doesn't want to rely on the keyboard. Those are Windows users and Mac users in particular. Mac users would rather have their one-button mouse than their keyboard. But they want Windows. And this is why Linux people, all of whom are retarded with the UI, can't make a system work that people will go from Windows to Linux on. And for decades, I've been trying to explain this to these retards. I'm like, guys, this is really easy. Your priorities and the priorities of your client are not even close. These people want a windowing system that works. We actually know what a good windowing system looks like, and you just refuse to give it to them because you're jerks. Because you want them to do things your way, and that ain't working. So I was at the GNU Labs. I talked to Stallman about shit like this. Those guys are just adamant about nobody wants to use a computer that way. And I'm like, well, how come Windows market share is growing and no one wants your garbage? Well, no. They just don't know how awesome Emacs. I hate Emacs. I hate Emacs. I mean, I think the concept is cool. I like what they did with it, but like, I won't use Emacs. I despise Emacs, and I learned Emacs in the day, and then I totally forgot it because I just don't use it, and that's the problem. Young God, is coding using voice to text a bad idea? Yeah, voice to text is terrible, especially for code, because, and maybe this could be fixed. In fact, it's not a bad business idea to fix that problem. When Well, first of all, nobody wants to speak out code because that's a pain in the teeth, basically. Uh, but also, you shouldn't have to. And like the coding things now are pretty good, and some of them take voice. The best way to do that is like perplexity stuff. Perplexity codes quite well. I don't know why you need a coding bot, especially if you're doing scripting and stuff. That Yeah, you can just use a regular big freaking Claude and Perplexity do scripts as good as anything else does. They just can't do real software engineering. Whereas Claude Code and Cursor AI and stuff and Gemini, they can actually do really cool code stuff. Um, like you can just talk to it and it'll just tell it, write me some code that does blue, and it'll just write it. But you can't use like software languages, especially good ones like C, are designed to get you at a certain level of symbolic perspective that allows you to be able to tell the computer what to do very precisely. And text to speech is not good for precision things. Text to speech didn't work well until LLMs. That's actually the revolution, is LLMs. But because it's human interface, not anything else, it's not reasoning. It just turns out if you improve the human voice interface with the computer, right, in a certain way, which LLMs do by making these complicated connections where it's more about the computer being able to interact with you. This is actually one of the things they don't stress. It's actually the strong point of LLMs that no one's using. Don't tell anybody. If the computer actually asks you questions, this is also what I worked on back in, what was it? Yeah, it was 96. It was right after I bought my house, my first house. It was 1996. I worked on this. Like I was a knowledge engineer, right? Like it would ask you questions and you would interface back with it and it would get a bunch of information from the computer. That's actually a really good use of machine learning technologies in general, AI specifically. We didn't even have AI. We had machine learning. It was great. System Wizard was an interesting. You can look up System Wizard. I think it's still on the internet somewhere. The product died, but people know about it. I was actually going to build a competing product, but people suck, and working with people is the worst idea anybody ever had. Oh my god. Oh, especially techies. Techies are ridiculously unreliable. The only more unreliable than techies is artists. Artists are worse, but it's a close race. Yeah, I had everybody lined up, and this guy who was running around with older women, much older women, like women in their 60s, and he was like 23. Okay, you do you, man. He left his girlfriend, who was a little too young. She was 48. And he went for a 62-year-old or something, and he just kind of fell in love. And I was like, whatever. And then he left. And I'm like, dude, we had this whole plan. You were going to build this thing with me. And he skipped town and everything. And I was like, you unreliable piece of garbage. So I tried to resurrect that company a couple times because I could have built that product a little bit better. But oh well. And they exited the industry. So I would have had no competition. But the problem was I would never been able to get that to work because like they knew like the reason why they were in Micron and Packard Bell, and I think they were talking to Dell, is because they knew those guys. Like they could get a meeting with the higher ups in the I could never do that. That's always the problem in a startup because I've done a bunch of startups. If you don't have the contacts, the best product in the world is worthless. It's worth less than zero. Just a waste of your time and everybody else's. Because if you can't get in front of the people who would have the money to buy it and would want to buy it, you ain't going to sell it. Things don't sell on merit. Nobody can measure merit. Nobody can say, well, this is the best version of AI ever. No one can do that. People try, but you can't do that. And even if it is, if it's the best and no one understands why it's the best, it doesn't sell. That's why sales is more important than product. If you want to make money, you want to be close to the money. If you're in sales and marketing, you'll always make more money. Like the sales and marketing guys at many of the companies I work for, they made more money than anybody else in the company, CEO, CTO. Yeah, they always made more money because they're the ones that bring it in. Not the product guy in the back who builds a good. I mean, he may make a great salary, but he doesn't make more than a head of marketing does. No freaking way. Most companies I work for, the highest paid guy in total compensation was always the head of marketing and sales. Always, always, always. No exceptions. I work for some tech companies with some cool ass tech, very unique stuff. Nope. Head of marketing made more money because of the bonus incentive plan. And I used to pay marketing people based on their contacts, not based on any other metric. Who do you know? Okay, well, those are people we want to sell to. We'll hire you. Every sale you make, we'll give you 30% off the top. Yep. So they get a ridiculous salary anyway. And then they get all these bonus dollars that no one ever talks about, right? Be very wary about salaries versus total compensation. They're not the same thing. See, these are sorts of things poor people don't know. You got to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad and similar books to understand how all this works. That's why, this is why everyone's always at a disadvantage, right? Because you don't understand how the things above you work, and you may never be able to. And so rather than trying to cut the best deal you can by making a friend, you try to cut the best deal you can by negotiating. And you have to have some negotiating skills. But actually, if the guy on the other end of the negotiation doesn't like you, it's pointless to negotiate a good deal because you won't get a good deal. They'll screw you out of it somehow because they know things you don't. That's the last 2 startups I worked for. That's basically what happened. Like, I fell out of favor or whatever, and they never paid me. And I'm like, you sons of bitches. I worked for you for a year and you didn't pay me $1. What the hell? Like that happens. And I knew that, like, I've been around. I already know this. So it wasn't a super big deal. Like I knew the risk. I tried to work with the Raveki Foundation for a year. They never paid me $1. I just found some of the documents, some of their agreements. I'm like, would have been nice if you guys stuck to these agreements and like paid me like you said you were gonna, but they never did. And I'm not mad. Like that's what it is. But also, like, that's what it is. There's nothing you can do about that. Nothing. And you just need to realize that. Life isn't a video game where you can do a certain set of moves in a certain sequence and guarantee an outcome. That's not life. Right? It was one of the better parts of the conversation I was listening to with Jordan Hall and Vervaeke and this other clown. Like, oh, if you ask me, would I rather have certainty or relationship? I think it was certainty or relationship. I pick relationship every time. And it's like, yes, that's correct. But they're just trying to reinvent the world by dissecting the world and then using. I got to find a way to do something on models. Like the one mistake they're making is 2 of them are tech guys, and like people don't understand. Computer tech in particular is modeled on real life. Taking a model of something and using it to then understand the thing it's a model of is actually invalid, right? So you have a low resolution picture of something, and then you're extrapolating from that low resolution picture that was made from the full resolution thing, what the full resolution thing does. That will always fail. There's an information science reason why that has to be true. And I don't understand why these people are making that mistake, especially if you're in computer tech. We know about this. So I was going to do it today, but I didn't feel well today. I was going to do comp sci is greater than cog sci. I have to do a bunch of research just to back up the stuff that I already know and refresh myself and all that, and do a bunch of cog sci updating because, but I noticed I was going through some documents today for resurrecting that other project, that other business. And I was like, oh yeah, I had some of this stuff earlier, some of these observations. Sally Joe, can't give the Silk Road hippies any more free art anyway. Yeah, I know, because they never noticed the value anyway. I know, you sent them all free art and they're all bad people. That's how I know. If you snub the artist, you're not the good guy. I don't know what else to tell you. You can sit there and say you care about beauty all day long, but when you're snubbing art and artists, I know you're lying. You're probably also lying to yourself. To be fair, you're kind of enchanting yourself. But also, the universe is really good. The last like 2 minutes, they were like, I actually put a comment on it because I was like, yeah, you guys need to see this. And it's not a new comment. I slightly reword things, but I've said that before. So eventually I'm hoping it'll hit. After the video with Mechu comes out, everything's gonna change. Everything's gonna change. And if you haven't seen my video with Rachel Fulton Brown, that was a really good one too. But this new video is going to be lit. Absolutely lit. I am so excited for you all to see it. It's going to be great. And yeah, I'm going to try to do the Matrix next week, probably next Saturday or something. Maybe next Sunday. Oh, I can't do next. No, I can do next Sunday. This Sunday I have a book club. Next Sunday I don't think I have anything. I think my weekend is free. If next weekend is free, I will do the Matrix. I'll schedule it a few days in advance to let everybody know. So, check the channel. I'll do it as a live stream. I just have a bunch of notes that I have to go over and curate and all that. And if somebody, like I said, somebody wants to jump in and realized how psyop they are from that fundamentally evil movie, yeah, it'll be fun. Sally Joe didn't have the same issue with Jocko and Don the Pleb, but yep, can't give free things to the endlessly open-minded, no boundaries people. Yeah, it's weird to me that people can't see the difference either. And I'm always freaked out by, people don't seem to know the difference between children and adults. People don't seem to know the difference between men and women. People don't seem to know the difference between smart people and stupid people. People don't seem to understand, like, if you have an expertise in something, applying your expertise outside of your domain is probably a bad idea and makes you dumb. Like, people don't understand these things. And I'm like, these are all basic things that I grew up with. So I'm always confused. I'm like, I don't know why this is confusing for people. It should be very, very clear that if you're a teacher and you're a good teacher, you're probably not going to be a good politician, right? Just because they're different skill sets. And I think the problem is there are polymaths out there, and they're super rare. And the odds that they became that way, like in their 40s or 50s or whatever, are zero. Like, either you've always been doing lots of things or you haven't. And it's weird to me that no one has any discernment for any of the most important things anymore. Like, if you watch Jordan Hall and you don't see that he's struggling and making stuff up as he goes, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you shouldn't watch people like that because you're just not discerning enough to avoid enchantment. I think that's really the problem. And it bothers me. Like, it actually upsets me that we're in this situation where people can't see anything. Like, they can't tell who's full of it. They can't see who's arrogant and who actually knows what they're talking about. They can't tell, oh, this person has this perspective because they have money. It has nothing to do with the quality of the work. Like, wealthy people, for example, like, they understand that most things are terrible. Like, they know, like, oh yeah, well, if I hire somebody, they're probably not going to be very good at their job and whatever. So employee A and employee C are the same and whatever. We can just replace. I mean, they actually think that. And like you on the ground, you may know, oh, no, you need employee C. You can't get rid of that guy. You get rid of everybody else, but not him. They don't see the world that way at all because they can't tell. And that's why stupid people get hired, right? Because it's very hard to hire people who are smart. My problem is whenever I recruited somebody to do something, I would know what they could do better than they could, and they wouldn't have the confidence to step up and do the work, even if it was work they had done before well, like for whatever reason. That's actually very common, right? And so you kind of right, and then what companies do, and people say people fail upward. Yeah, once you buy a person, you value the person, right? And so the fact they can't do the job you hired them for, a good manager will try to find a different place to put that person because it's very hard to find good people. So if you think you found a good person and they're not good at the job you put them in, you just move jobs. That's actually a good management strategy. Now, when it goes horribly wrong, it goes horribly wrong. You know when else that happens? When anything goes horribly wrong in any domain. It's just that we oversample that one because usually it's a coworker or something. It's somebody who interfered with our work and they're incompetent and they're clearly incompetent. And we know they're incompetent. Other people don't know that. And I've seen people come into jobs who they were very bad at the job they were hired for, and they moved them and they were very bad at that job and they moved them again and they were fantastic. That happens. That happens a lot, actually. The problem is when you're hired for a job like me and you're really, really good at it, and then like you get bored or like there's another thing that needs doing that you would be better at than the person doing it, it's very hard to get out of the job you're good at, even if you would be better at a different job. Very hard. Because once they see you as valuable in a spot, they don't want to move because they don't know what that's going to do. And fair enough. And once you understand that from the manager perspective, read the 10-Day MBA by Steven Silver. It's a great book. Once you understand that, it's like, oh, now business decisions make more sense. But if you haven't been in a management position, you won't get that. You won't understand any of that. I've been in management positions. I understand all this pretty well, actually. It's very hard to get perspectives that aren't yours. It's very easy to project a fantasy perspective onto somebody else, but it's very hard to actually get somebody else's perspective. That's why I like the 10-Day MBA as a book because it really gives you like, oh, here's the sort of the 10 aspects of business that are important for you to understand. And then it's like, oh, wait a minute. Whenever anybody at the top of a company is considering, they're considering some, if not all of these aspects. And just something you don't think about because your day to day is doing whatever you're doing. Like maybe you're a programmer. It's like, well, your day to day is programming, not thinking about what is the HR impact? What is the marketing and sales impact? What is the technical impact? Right. And how do I balance those? Well, this guy may be a really good technical guy, but every time we put him in front of a customer, he loses $1 million. Yeah, fire that jerk. Right. Oh, well, that makes sense. Right. It doesn't make sense from the technical perspective because he might be the best tech guy in the company. But it makes sense from a sales perspective because he's losing the company money. Right. And some companies don't care. I've dealt with companies where I was like, oh, this is your buddy. You're giving your buddy a job. Your company never going to make any money because you're giving your buddy a job because you like him. But he's a jerk and he's scaring all your customers away. I've seen that at more than one company. That happens. Because wealthy people, they don't care about money. They'll throw it away just to hire their friends, just to have their friends report to them. I would do that. I've told a few of my friends, dude, if I had a few $1,000,000, you'd be working for me all day. That's what you'd be doing. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah, we'd be working in the Bahamas on the beach with freaking mojitos because that's how I work. Like my buddy, so he started this ISP. He had the longest running ISP in the United States, or probably in the world, for a while, actually. And so you had this company, and like at one point, I was like, "Bro, I need a job," and he's like, "Yeah, I can hire you, whatever. Just come. I can't pay a lot of money." I'm like, "No, I just need income. I don't need a lot of money. I need income. You don't need to pay me the 120 a year or whatever the hell I used to make." I'm like, "I just need like 6, 8 months, a year, whatever, some income, so I'm not bleeding money." He's like, yeah, you can come work here. We definitely need the help, so it's fine. So I went to work for him, and the thing was, like, I'd get there at like 9 because it's far away. He was in freaking Quincy. I had to drive from Marlboro to Quincy every day. Blah, right? So I'd drive in, and he wanted me in the office. I wanted to be in the office because I loved him. He's fantastic, super smart guy. And then, like, we'd get into an argument over some technical thing, and we'd be yelling and screaming at each other because he was always wrong. I can just tell you that right up front. And then it would be like 11:30, and, like, he'd go, "It's lunchtime." And I'm like, "Oh, shit, it's lunchtime, let's go." And we'd be gone for the next 2.5 hours. It's his company, he was the boss. And we just have lunch, and we wouldn't talk about the tech thing, and we come back, and usually by that point, we were cooled down and, one of us would give up, right? One of us would be like, "Oh, yeah, I see, you're right. Whatever." Right? But that was our whole style, and it just freaked out everybody that worked there. They were like, "What the hell is with those 2?" Because we'd have, like, he was a little more violent. Like, he'd throw stuff. I was like, "Bro, calm down. Don't slam stuff on the desk. Just relax. We can yell this out. We don't need to physically fight this out. I mean, I can do that too, but I'll whoop you because martial arts, baby." He didn't have as much martial arts training as I did, and he knew it too. Also, he wasn't bigger than me. That always helps. So also, if you're bigger than me, I could still drop your ass, so don't try it. Um, so yeah, he would actually, like, throw stuff, and, like, I was like, "Dude, yelling only, please, please." Yelling, screaming, and swearing, and, insulting each other's mothers and stuff, but no, none of this, like, knocking stuff off the desk garbage. Like, come on, what are you doing? But yeah, we had a blast. But, like, we go to 2-hour lunches. We'd go to we just, like, one day we did, like, 4 hours for lunch. I was like, what happened to the day?" I come in, we work for a couple hours, we go to lunch, we come back, work for a couple hours, go home. It's like, what's happening? And it was totally worth it, right? Like, he wasn't paying me much. I'm a pretty valuable employee because I can do all kinds of stupid things that most people can't do. And yeah, I mean, yeah, young God, I'm not Neo. Like, where do you get your ideas from? Like, I wouldn't want to be Neo. Neo's a dumb idea anyway, and the whole Matrix movie is a psyop. And apparently, it worked on you, which is sad. But maybe I'll help you out with the Matrix video and get you off that crack cocaine that is the Matrix. I still love that movie, but also total psyop. Sally Joe. He hasn't seen the White Rabbit. No, I didn't. I didn't. So I'm being funny to you. You're being funny in your head, maybe. I think that's your main problem. That's most trolls' main problem. They're funny to them. And, like, fair enough. Like, sometimes you got to amuse yourself, but you shouldn't really do it in public or at the expense of others because that just makes you a bad person. And, I mean, the thing here is we're all about being better because the world needs you and the world needs you. So be better. Right. So that's all. That's all. We're singularly focused. Right. Think local. Right. Oh, I got to get the other one. Yeah, I keep forgetting to do this. We got to get a graphic up for the perfect is the enemy of the better, not the enemy of the good. I know some semi-famous, slick little snake of a person said that once, but that's wrong. And it's the enemy of the better. Um, you don't even know the good. You don't have to know. This is the thing. Everyone's like, "What is the good?" Well, we can't know the good, so we have to do these other things. I'm like, no, the only thing you have to do is be better. That's actually the only thing you have to do. And you just have to keep doing it. Fair enough. Um, but no. Self-justification is the reason why you're a troll. So laughter may be the best medicine. And if you're admitting that you need the laughter because you need medicine, there's better ways to do that. And you should probably get help from outside instead of trying to self-medicate. Oops. See how I can do that to you every time? We like we can go all day because I cannot lose that game. There's a technical reason why, by the way, aside from the fact that I kind of invented half the trolling on the internet back in the day. But there's a technical reason why. It's mathematically certain, but I like to win. So if you want to keep playing, I'm for it. I'm here. Like, let's do this. I love to win. I love it. Also, you will not score, but I'm okay with that. Oddly, uh, I have no problem. Unless you saw me with Claire Caw, you haven't seen me excited. My Claire Caw video is awesome though. That then I got excited. That was the first time I got excited online, and probably the last. Everything else is affectation, much like this and that. And huh, weird. It's almost like I'm putting on a show on the Friday lives. Nah, couldn't be it. Sally Joe, someone without responsibility, go on vid. Yes. No one wants to join me. I had noticed that. Nobody loves me. Castle must not be around. He would come on. Woo or with manageable responsibilities. Yeah, well, there you go. CC Mole. But win at what cost? It doesn't cost me anything because it's pure enjoyment. This is a personal question to me, really. I'm taking suggestions on potential adjustment going forward. What are you trying to adjust? Like, why don't you just flat out give me a scenario and I can tell you how to resolve it in like 4 seconds? Because that is a talent that I have. It's better done on the Discord server, but I'm happy to do it here. I mean, this is part of why this is here. Like, if you need to know something, especially now, it's Muppet Madness. You can pretty much ask whatever you want. Sally Joe intimidated by the hat. Dun dun dun. I gotta get it. Yeah. See, I forgot to buy a hat this week. It's probably gonna have to wait till after I get back from Ireland. But I gotta get a better pirate hat. I'm gonna do it. My buddy from Camden did not leave me a comment on where he bought his hat, so I have a tiny excuse. Although he did tell me, he was a guy from Vermont. I forget. See, now I don't remember. That's why I was waiting for the comment. But I will no doubt run into him again because he does the Camden stuff, and we'll go back there. They've got a whole Revolutionary War thing. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the Ken Burns Revolutionary War series because I'm like, oh, cool. Why you would mention Daryl Cooper in the same breath as Ken Burns? Like, I think that should be a crime punishable by death. Actually, I was thinking about this earlier today, like when I was listening to Vervaeke and Jordan Hall talk, and I'm like, I think our problem is not enough capital punishment. Like, my capital punishment window just keeps expanding the more I listen to people. And man, that freaking article I read, oh, with the 3 2-sentence paragraphs. 3 2-sentence paragraphs. Why do we allow such things to be seen by humans? The number of people that can write a 2-sentence paragraph is vanishingly small. And this guy, who wasn't making any sense in his article anyway, was not one of them and could not be made to be one of them. What a dope. What a dope. Sally Joe, no hats required to be on Mark's channel before the big combo and be on the same channel. Yeah, okay. CC Mole, I want to win, even if it's so stupid, I should just let it go. It's a waste of time, even if it's enjoyable, in my opinion. Yes. Well, the desire to win is the desire for control. And not always, but primarily, if you have a compulsion to win like that, see, I just like to win. I don't have any compulsion to win. Like, if there are no games, I won't make up a game. If somebody needs a game made up, I'll make up a game. But I'll usually be fair. I'll be like, see, part of the problem with me is if there's a game and you set up the rules however you want, I will win because I'm that good at games of that nature. I'm not good at video games because I refuse to make my hands respond at the wrong rate to make a character on the screen because I'm so quick that I'm actually really sensitive to the even a wired mouse is way too slow for me. I'm like, no, 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 these responses are way off. That's why I hate using mice, actually. In fact, I use a track mouse because the track mouse is actually much more accurate and quick. But like, I hate using mice. That's why I use keyboard. That's why I hate touchscreens. Touchscreens are way too slow for me, like way too slow. I screw up on the phone all the time, right? Like that's part of the problem. Like competence level very high. So when I set up a game, I set it up so that I will lose. It's like so other people have a chance because I want other people to have a chance. I want to cooperate with people. I don't want to just beat people down all the time. So if you want to win all the time, it's that competitive nature is all about the nature of feeling in control. And the thing is that when you want that level of control, it's because you feel like you don't have it where it's needed. Generally, not all the time, but almost all the time, right? And so you need to figure out what you feel out of control about most because your desire to win, like I said, like I don't have that problem. I have a different problem. My problem is if you want to play, like if you think that you're better than me or some bullshit, I will cat and mouse you forever. And I'm the cat and you're the mouse. And I have no problem with that because I get an extra boost of not just winning, but also knowing that like you're trapped and I get to play with the mouse as long as the mouse doesn't run away. And I'm happy to give you ways to run away, but people won't. And that just makes them arrogant. And hate I hate arrogance and I hate greed. I hate those two things a lot. And so when I have the opportunity to double up on my enjoyment, I do. But I always let people go because I'm not that vested in it because it's not a control thing for me. Like I'm not tied up in control because I know what I have control of and what I don't. So it just doesn't bother me. It's like, yeah, there's all these things I have no control over. Like people are like, why aren't you outraged about losing a $500,000 house? And I'm like, because I had no control. And I thought I did. And I did everything that I could. I spent $50,000, which actually was a bargain, to try to save that house. But like ultimately they just took it. I was like, okay, well, I mean, I guess like I could have extended that lawsuit. I could have, but I'm not tied up in control. And that's part of the problem. Young God, 3 two-sentence paragraphs. Yeah, at the end, like the last 3 paragraphs were two-sentence paragraphs. No, they weren't compound sentences. No, they weren't. They were simple sentences. Right. It was beyond heresy. Like when I said capital punishment, no, actually capital punishment for that guy. Like, no, we can't have people do that. Like you can't let people do that. You can't. You actually can't. You're just destroying language and coherence in the world. The whole article was full of bizarre abstract BS. Actual question: why not go to Vegas and win? Um, well, because you can't necessarily win at Vegas. The odds are stacked in the casino's favor, and you have no control. But also, if I have never played a game for money of poker and lost ever, ever, not for money. If we play for free, I don't win. But if we play for money, I always win. I don't even know why, because that involves a great deal of luck. It's not a poker's not a skill thing entirely. There are some skills, but right. Also, I'm not greedy. Like, did you miss the greedy part? Sally Joe, I hate apathy. Peak hate apathy. Yes, I also hate apathy. That's true, but not more than greed. Did you catch bugs and grasshoppers as a kid and then let them go? No. I did fishing for a while. Apparently, I have bass in my pond, and people are like, "You don't fish?" And I'm like, "No." I mean, I did. I used to. We used to go to Zyla's. Zyla's was an excellent store. It had all this fishing equipment. It was in New Hampshire, so it was tax free. Big deal when you live in Massachusetts. And so we go up to Zyla's and we get fishing gear, and they had cheap fishing gear, and it was great. And we go fishing and whatever. So like I know how to fish. I've done fishing. I'm not going to fish, but Yeah, I mean, when you're sort of examining like your own flaws, which I don't actually recommend you do too much because you can cut up in that stuff and it's not healthy, but you have to kind of understand what your motivations are. And it's really hard to do without contrast. That's why it's better to do it with other people. You have to kind of figure out if you have too much of something in one area, like competitiveness. Now, everybody in my family is competitive. I'm very competitive. I'm just not, because I'm a stoic, among other things, I'm not competitive above other things, right? And I was when I was younger, for sure. Like when I was younger, I was just charging for a fight, charging for a game, not actual fights. I hated actual fights, especially because I almost killed somebody once. So kind of, oh, I, granted, he was throwing rocks, like physical rocks at me, but also probably don't want to kill a 10-year-old kid just because he's throwing rocks at you. Are we 10? Something like that. I forget. Um, even if you can, because I could, and I came damn close. Um, Also blocking rocks with your, using the blocking strategies. Yeah, you bruise your wrists up a bit, but it's not too bad. Um, I was never like, oh, like this is the most important thing. When you have a competitive streak, right? When you value that above something else, those are projections internal to yourself on other areas of your life. See, this is why I have a problem with psychology. If you use it correctly, and I learned psychology on PBS from Philip Zimbardo, actually, the guy who did the Stanford prison experiment. He had a whole series. It's quite good. And I read the DSM-3 cover to cover. Don't read the 4 and 5; they're garbage. But the 3 is actually really, really good. It's not perfect; it's got its flaws, but it's way better than the rest. Um, when you understand the most powerful force in psychology is projection and the unconscious, and then you understand that your life is supposed to be balanced the way the Stoics talk about. I want to talk about true Stoicism versus the modern version of Stoicism and that garbage. It's a waste of time. The way Stoics and Epicureans talk about life, like how it's supposed to unfold, Epicurus in particular, by the way, but then you start to understand, oh, if I'm out of balance in my life, if I have like too much of a compulsion for something, either I'm trapped with that compulsion and I have to learn to manage it. Sally, Sally, she does an excellent job. Or I'm projecting and I need to fix the projection, and you need to fix what's causing the internal projection. Psychological projection is not only external, right? You can do that and then bang, right? Yawn God, but seriously, professional poker is a thing. Yep, I'm aware of that. I mean, coding can be a passion. Yeah, I made a lot of money coding, dude. Like a load of money coding. But if the ability to win at poker is there, yeah, that's not how poker works. There's got to be money in that. Yeah, but I'm not greedy. What part of I'm not greedy are you missing? Just missing this angle seems irresponsible. No, it really isn't. And you can argue, but Mark, you're out about $6 or $7 million. Yeah, I got that stolen from me. I understand that. And I could be bitter about that or whatever, but it happened. And it happened because I didn't understand hierarchy and I was unprotected and my family is horrible. Um, so what? Like, it's not important. And maybe it's important to you, and maybe that's why your life sucks. I don't know. It's not important to me. And if you read a book, where's that book? Shoot. Who is that idiot? Nate Silver. There we go. If you read Nate Silver's, I think it's his first book, it might be his only book, the guy who did 538, if you read his book about playing poker, by the way, then you'll learn something not only about hierarchy, but about scaling and the development of scaling and how all that works, and why being good at poker does not mean you go to a World Poker Championship and make $10 million, or you could watch the movie Rounders. Everybody should watch anyway because Matt Damon's in it, and Matt Damon's awesome. He's from Cambridge, Massachusetts. But more importantly, that movie is really well written, and it talks about friendship in a way that I don't think any other movie captures, at least none that I know of. So that's the thing. Like, when you understand things like hierarchy and scaling, and when you understand how the world is actually structured, you realize that, especially at that level, those people, just like the people that took my house, will play with you to take everything from you for no reason other than to take everything from you. And actually, that's that theme, and maybe it's really hard to see in Rounders, but that's in the movie Rounders. But if you read Nate Silver's book, his original book about poker, then you'll understand a bunch of things about why your proposal is ridiculous. Young God, this is like a 7-foot tall kid not being introduced to basketball. Some people don't like basketball. Most people who 80% of people who win the lottery and 80% of people who go into sports and make a lot of money go bankrupt. This is not a solution to anything. There's a reason for that. It's because money doesn't solve problems. And if you don't know how to manage money, more money will make your life worse. Guaranteed. You need to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. At a minimum, there's probably a couple of other books you need to read too, but about money. But like, you at least need to understand that this idea that you can just earn money and you'll keep it is ridiculous. And almost no one does that because it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Reliably doesn't work. 80% of the people who win the lottery are bankrupt within 5 years of winning the lottery, even if they take the payments, which to me is a miracle. Like, how did you screw up that badly? There's a guy right now, Publishers Clearinghouse got bought. And so those yearly, $200,000 a year for life or whatever nonsense like, this guy's like, oh no, they've stopped payments and now I'm going bankrupt. And I'm like, bro, how is that possible? Like, so you have $200,000 a year in expenses? Well, what are you doing with your life? How did you manage that? You must have bought a bunch of stuff that you can't sell. Look, what is happening? But reliably, this happens to people. Money doesn't solve anything, but it does make everything worse. It is a magnifier. So if your life sucks and you get money, your life's going to suck more. Not in the short term, but like shortly thereafter. Sally Joe, I struggle to care about the set game at all. It's its own problem. Yeah, right. Well, everything comes with its own set of problems. You should know what trade-offs you're making. This is always the problem with people. Sally Joe, I don't really think it's because I win a good game. I just hard to care about the game parameters. Yeah, because you're an artist. So don't be an artist. Yon God, you don't have to diss me all the time. I'm not dissing you, dude. You're not listening, though. And that's your main problem in life. This is why you troll, because you can't hear people when they talk. And they try to give you good advice and they try to help you, but you know better. So you're not listening, or you're misinterpreting everything you hear. And that's what's ruining your life. Nothing else is ruining your life and making you a miserable troll. Just you and your inability to listen. Like, how many times do I have to say, like, I hate greed? I actually hate greed. It's not good. I don't like it. Young God, but I've been listening to you for 2 hours. No, you haven't actually heard a word I've said. I've said I hate greed like 7 times, and you're like, yeah, but you could make more money every single time. Is that listening? I don't think it is. I think that's the definition of absolutely not listening at all. And that has to cut something, has to. No, it doesn't have to. This is the mistake people make. I did something, and so that's valuable. No, most of the things you do have no value. And even the valuable things you do have no value. And that's what people need to get over. Like, I'm sorry. That's just not how it works. Value is a negotiation. I have a video about this on economy. Yeah, I think that's the one where I talk about this. Like, value is a negotiation. It is not an objective state of something in the universe. That's the problem. That's the problem. Sally Joe, I'm just attempting to notice when people are registering some games and then just straight let them run into the domain as much as I can handle. It's not that much, but it's better. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. And see, this is the problem with people because we have this objective worldview. I have a video on that too. Of course I do. Because we have this objective worldview, we really don't understand how the world works because they think there's some like confirmation theory of reality out there where things have value apart from relationship. Nothing has value outside of a relationship. This is why people go like, well, Elon Musk has all this money. Why doesn't he just like buy homeless people houses? And it's like, because that money doesn't manifest until he does something, like it's tied up in corporations, which are employing people, by the way. So you'd make more homeless people by having him divest than you would be able to pay for anyway. No one accounts for that because people can't do math. Yeah, and people really don't understand how anything works above them. And so when you don't understand that to have, a wealth of $200 billion or whatever nonsense it is, that doesn't mean what you think it means. Right? And the guys at Nokia, we have a $4 billion company. No, you don't. You have a company that's losing $400 million a year. The valuation of your company is irrelevant because your cash flow is negative. This isn't, I mean, that's basic accounting at the business level, by the way. That is covered in the 10-day MBA, which everybody should read. Steven Silberger, wonderful book. I think he's on his 4th edition. I have the 1st edition. It's red and gold and black, I think, if I remember correctly. I probably do. I have a very visual memory. But this is the problem when you cast the world as objective and then you think those objects are just there for you to interact with, we'll say equally to everybody else. Right? And like, it's so weird. Like, people don't understand. There are people who are not wealthy who control a lot of money. And they can do whatever they want with that money. Like, actually whatever they want. Like, they can invest it in businesses, or this is how Billy Joel got ripped off because he used to be wealthy. He never wanted to go back into music, by the way, and he had to because the guy who was managing his money spent all his money on bad things. And then he didn't find out till too late he was broke. He had to go back to work. And he didn't want to go back to work, which is funny. Like, we don't think of it that way. He had enough money. He didn't want more. Everybody complains about wealthy people being greedy. Most wealthy people, like, they have enough and they don't want more. They are exactly the thing you think they should be, but you don't realize that because you don't know how it works. Sally Joe, aligning your words and actions. Step 1, Peterson thing. Yeah, exactly. Peterson's awesome. It really does harm you not to not. Yeah. You got to align your words and actions. It's absolutely key, right? Do not lie. Right? Yeah. That subsequently harms everyone because actually we need everyone. Wait, we need everyone? Wait, are you saying that the world needs you to be better? Is that what you're saying? That's being said here? Hold on. Can that be true? I wish I had a graphic. Oh, never mind. I do. Yeah. It's weird the way people do things. You're cosmologically valuable to creation. It's well said, Sally. I like that. Huh. We'll have to have a graphic for that too. And especially people who are super competitive or like to troll, what they rely on is detail and certainty. And so they're legalists by default. And they think they're winning by being more precise and accurate. But they're not. They're just destroying the world by trying to perfect it because the perfect is the enemy of the better. This is why I need a graphic for that. And they get caught up in that because they can see perfection, because certain people can. Like, I can see perfection. I can go, oh, I know exactly how this would work so much better, that it would be as close to perfection as you can get. But the thing is, almost nothing can ever do that. And when it can, it doesn't last. And there are technical reasons for that. Even in mathematics, that's true, by the way. Right? Scale just destroys everything. Time destroys everything because time and entropy are kind of related in some way that I don't understand. Um, so people get caught up in the perfection that they see, not realizing it can't be manifested in the world. And that's a real problem because it's not like your vision is wrong. It's just that your vision isn't the world. It's a map of the world. And it's weird to me that, a guy like Vervaeke, uh, or any of these other clowns, probably Peterson too, for that matter, right? They keep talking about the map and the territory, and the map's not the territory, and we can't trust our senses because our senses are imperfect. And then they go and postulate a perfect world. And I'm like, so let me get this right. You're living in the world. You know you have imperfect senses and that you can't sense it perfectly, yet somehow you have the bizarre and completely obviously incorrect belief that you can figure out what the perfect world should be, even though you have imperfect access to it. How do you know it's not already perfect and the problem is you? Because by your own definition, that could be true. Maybe the world is perfect and the problem is you. Oops. That's the only logical conclusion, by the way, too. Oh, no. Oh, no. If we actually properly use logic, that's the only logical conclusion. There's nothing wrong with the world, but there's something wrong with you. Like, why do these, and then these people sit there and they go, well, logically. And I'm like, you don't know logic. You're illogical. You're actually illogical and you can't even see it because you're so stupid. And that's why I think those people are stupid because they can't do first order logic correctly. That's first order logic. They're trying to do second order logic. Oh my goodness. Like, this is terrible. Like, these people must all suck at math more than I do. And that's saying something because I can't do math in my head. Like, I'm completely out of it. Like, I just can't do, there's technical reasons why, but like, I can't do it. The world is perfect. No, you can't confirm. That was kind of the whole point. But the logical conclusion from the statement that we don't have perfect access to the world is that we're the problem and not the world. That would be the logical conclusion. The truth of that is kind of irrelevant to me because, again, I'm a pragmatist. So what do I have control over? I have control over me. Do I have control over the world? Only through my control over me. Oops. And that resolves the whole thing. And now Stoicism makes sense. Epicureanism makes sense. The Socratic way of engaging with the world makes sense, even though Socrates went too far. And yeah, he should have drank the hemlock because he was corrupting youth. And yeah, we can't have that. The Socratic moment is now. Everyone's all caught up in academia and, quote, philosophy, all of which seems to be sophistry, by the way, because all philosophy died after Aristotle, clearly. And people just act like that's not my statement. The number of people in philosophy who say all philosophy is footnotes to Plato is shockingly high. It's double-digit percentage, guys. So this isn't like something Mark made up yesterday with his pirate outfit on. That didn't happen. The fact of the matter is that we're trying to do what we think of as philosophy as a solution to a world that we can't even prove isn't already perfect. But we already admit and believe, apparently, that we don't have perfect access. Okay. What are you doing? You're not applying basic logic, reason, and rationality to this whole scheme that you've set up. And that's bad enough. But the real crime is that these people claim to use logic, reason, and rationality. They claim that the world is made up of logic, reason, and rationality, roughly speaking, or at least knowable through these mechanisms. first of all, that's observably false. So that's crazy. And second of all, okay, but your own system, if you take your own statements seriously, which I think are correct, like I don't think that's wrong. My father can't tell the difference between red and green, like physically with his eyes. It seems pretty imperfect. Why are you engaging in the way you're engaging? You clearly don't believe what you're saying. Clearly, your actions and your words are like complete performative contradiction. Complete. And then you're proceeding from that, and then you want to tell me these people are smart? These people aren't smart. That's a stupid mistake to make. At the end of the day, I don't care what your IQ is. I don't care how educated you are. I don't care how many PhDs you have. That's a dumb mistake to make. My buddy from MIT, PhD, I was working, well, still working on that project actually. I was working on this project and I was using like SVMs and we're doing some predictive stuff on time series. And he goes, "Oh, this problem, you should apply a Wiener kernel to it." And I'm like, "What the hell's a Wiener kernel?" I don't know. He's the guy who went to MIT and got the PhD, not me. I don't think he had his PhD at this point because, yeah, he wasn't even 30. He didn't get his PhD till he's 30. He stayed in school a long time. They gave him scholarships forever because he's unbelievably smart. This kid's next level. So I was like, "Oh, cool. I don't know much about the Wiener kernel." Like he goes, "Oh no, I'll code it up for you." And I'm like, "That's great. Let's see what the predictive power is if you apply a Wiener kernel." I mean, I don't know. That sounds like fun to me. Like, if this project works, it'd be great. It'd be a lot of fun. And being able to make predictions at that level with a time series is kind of cool. You can predict all kinds of things. So he does the project and he goes, "Oh yeah, I got like a 95% match." And I went, "What? No, no, there's no way." I'm like, "No, you didn't. Like a first try with code? Nah, nah, nah. Just highly unlikely. Just nah." I mean, he's smart, but also I've seen his code. Uh, he wasn't a better programmer than me. That's for sure. Um, and then I looked at it and I'm like, "Bro, like this looks like you're looking forward in the data." And he's like, "Oh no, you're right. Oh yeah, no, this is all wrong. I'm forward looking the data." I'm like, "Well, no wonder why your prediction's so high." Basic mistake. Basic, but like common mistake. It doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter how well educated you are. It doesn't matter. He ran a lab. Like, you know, he did experiments that no one had ever done before in the world, anywhere in human history. Okay. But he made a basic mistake that pretty much everybody makes, irrespective of their IQ. And that's why when you get like an Eric Weinstein, you start thinking he's smart, and then you're not paying attention to what he's saying. And if you were paying attention to what he's saying, you figure out pretty quickly this guy's a charlatan. He's playing to the audience. He's saying gobbledygook on purpose in some cases and whatever. I have videos. I can bring the goods, watch the videos. We miss that because we want to believe in this logical, rational, reasonable world. And like, even if it was that way, that doesn't help you. You don't have perfect access to it. Oops. It does you no good. It does you no good at all. Even if that's true, it does you no good because you're not reasonable, rational, logical. You're not. We're not rational creatures. We're not logical creatures. We're not reasonable creatures. We're creatures that are capable of those things for a short period of time at great expense. And it's a very short period of time relative to like a day. Like it's, maybe a few minutes a day and not all at once. And that's the problem. People don't appreciate that. They just sort of assume, "Oh, people are logical and I'm more logical because I can be more precise and accurate." Well, precision and accuracy doesn't give you logic or reason or rationality. It just gives you data. And that data can be sliced a bunch of ways. So remember earlier when I said you can play little troll games with me all you want, but you can't win? But I know that that's true, and I know why that's true, and you don't. And that's because it's not about the accuracy or precision of the data, it's about the framing. And guess what I do better than most people? Framing. I reframe things all the time. Being around me when I'm comfortable with you is totally fun because I'll just say the most ridiculous and amusing things because I just reframe things on the fly just because I can. I have an enormous amount of fun with it. And so you'll end up with one of my tricks that I use out and about with people I'm not even familiar with is if somebody drops something near me, I always go like, "Why are you getting violent?" Cracks people up every time, right? It's like, "What are you violent? I dropped a pen." Right? All the time I do that. Why? Because it's funny as hell and people love it. Sometimes it takes people a minute and then they start laughing. I'm like, "Yeah, see? Like dropping a pen is violent." Like, but you just reframe it. Right? You just reframe it. Bang, comedy is framing. A lot of comedy is framing. You do comedy with just framing. That's what Bill Cosby used to do. If you listen to the early Bill Cosby tapes from him from like the 70s or whatever, when he used to do stand up, we had them on audio cassette somehow. I don't know. And we used to listen to them when I was a kid. And that's like I figured it out. Like all he's doing is like taking like childhood events that children do and framing them as though the children are adults. And that's instantly funny. Like you don't have to do anything else. And you know that that's true. Like, so you watch Family Guy. And what do you have? You have a baby talking with a British accent. And he's like super rational and with a super high IQ and just knows way more than anybody else in the house. And of course that's funny. Like it's already funny. Right? So it's just framing. Like you can just mess with the framing. And I just like I do this all day long. So you know, uh spilling something on the counter turns into a universe ending event. Because I'll just spin a story right then and there. Like, oh, you you spilled the salt on the table and now the universe is going to end because salt is corrosive and it's going to eat through the table, and once the table is gone we won't be able to eat, and because we starve to death the universe will collapse because we're holding the universe. Like, I do just insane things and it's really fun and super funny, but I'm really good at framing, and these people like Jordan Hall are really bad at framing. And so they're trying to reproduce the frame that they're in from parts that they've made, from models that were made for them by really smart people who actually have an IQ higher than they do, right? That was meant to help them model the world. So they've taken a model of the world done by a really smart person, not them, because they're not really smart, and they've carved it up, and then they've tried to put it back together to understand the thing that it's modeling. And of course, again, that's never going to work, right? You can't understand the thing from a lower resolution copy of the thing. That's not how it works. That's not how anything ever works. You just grab a photocopy of something and make a photocopy of it, right? Or take a picture of a document and then then print that picture out and take a picture of that print, right? And do that over and over again and see what happens. It's really not that hard. Like you can experience this in real life all day long. So why are you listening to these clowns? If you're using computers and like network, like somebody did this to me the other day, they're like, well, but there are network effects in the past. I'm like, no medieval person was so retarded that they would use the term network effects because they understood the relationship of things to each other. The only reason why you would use network effects is because you carved the world up in a digital fashion, we'll say, right? And then you tried to recreate the world that you carved up, that you're trying to emulate. And then because it's digital, you can use it, do it all in math. Math doesn't map to the real world at all, by the way, but whatever. Um, and then you discovered that because you're putting things together in a way and connecting them with relationships, although they're flat relationships because computers are flat, it's digital, it's a flat screen, it's not that hard, it's actually flat, right? Digital things are flat and they're binary, like actually, but it's actually called binary. It's not that hard, right? Because you're doing that, when you're putting these pieces together in any way, you get relationships. Now, because it's math and you can understand the relationships, you can build math back up from scratch. It's a whole new math because you've carved up the world and created a whole new world, which is necessarily smaller than the world that is containing it. Weird how that works. The container, by definition, because that's how we define container, is always bigger than the contents. The contents is only identifiable in many cases, in this case in particular, by the container. Weird how that works. Also, language, not that hard. Conception, not that hard, right? So now you need a way to explain how the relationships work, and you can use math. Well, obviously, we can use that math to go back and understand and anachronistically use the term network effects because they had network effects. They didn't have network effects. They had something much richer. This is like the misunderstanding. Well, people built cathedrals, right, without trigonometry or algebra. And people don't believe me. And I'm like, no, really, they didn't even have trigonometry because that was lost with Archimedes. Archimedes had trigonometry. We lost trigonometry. Some of the medieval people had it, obviously, because you can look up the palimpsest of Archimedes, by the way, if you don't believe me. They didn't know Archimedes had trigonometry. They lost it all. But it just turns out you don't need trigonometry to build a cathedral. Like you don't need algebra. You don't need any math at all to build a cathedral. You need zero math. You write zero equations and you can build a cathedral. It's not that hard. That's why they did it. That's how they were able to do it. It's obvious, right? The same people who say, the medieval, the dark ages or whatever, these people were dumb. Yeah, but they can build a cathedral and you can't. Like actually can't. There's one cathedral, I forget, I think it's in France somewhere, but there was one cathedral. There was a lovely PBS show about this years ago, decades ago at this point, where the cathedral was falling apart and they were like trying to figure out what happened. And then they realized, wait a minute, there's a chain that goes the length of this cathedral that was holding it together this whole time, because when they built it, there was a small flaw. And they figured out how to fix the flaw by putting a chain inside the building, but in the whole circumference of the main part of the building. They did that. We didn't even know how it worked. We had no idea. And Andrew Wilson posted the other day on Twitter, like, oh, as if we don't have the technology to go to the moon. Yeah, we don't. People went to the moon, which wasn't that long ago, guys. That tech is lost. There's a navigation computer, and I think somebody recovered it relatively recently in the past 5 years or 6 years or something. There was a navigation computer that had its own language that you had to learn in order to use to go to the moon. We don't have that anymore. And maybe they've resurrected it and they found the guy, right? But that was recent. There were decades where we didn't have it. No one even knew it existed. Right? Sally Joe, who are other good alive framing people if people are looking to see that? I don't know. Everybody sucks and they're all dumb. You need teamwork and string to build a cathedral. Yeah, you need a rope and you divide it into 3 pieces, actually. Or to calculate it. I mean, you don't even need to calculate it. You just there's this whole thing about, I think it's just the arches, but it might be more. Like you take a rope of a certain length that you know what that length is. So you have to have measurement. No surprise there, right? But that's not math, by the way. right? Math is an operation you can use with numbers, but measurement's just numbers. So you take a rope and you fold it into 3 equal parts, which you can do through pure experimentation, right? Which you kind of have to do through pure experimentation, right? And then you can use that to do things. So there was a thing, I forget what it was. It's basically showing, oh yeah, it was gears. It was Robert Murray Smith, I think, was doing this with gears. So he's showing how to make gears. And like one of the tricks for making certain things or focal points, Nighthawk and Light is another great YouTube channel. He was doing this for focal points for parabolas. But you can do the same thing for like gears and stuff. So a lot of this stuff requires zero math, right? So how do you figure out the optimal focal point for a parabola? Well, actually, all you need is string and 2 nails and no math and 0 numbers. Right. And you can just draw it out actually with the string. And there's a trick to it. And I don't remember what it is top of my head. And that's not what this channel is about. So you can go look that up. Right. You don't need any math. You need to run any calculations. You can just use a piece of string and 2 nails and a measurement. The measurement's not math. That's it. You don't need anything else. So the illusion that math is important or that we need it or that it's got us to the moon or any of that is actually false. Now, the ability to quickly do complicated calculations via a computer, yes, that is an improvement on the error of trajectory. Precise trajectory calculations, this is how Napoleon is famous. And that is the error and the era, but mostly the error of what people are misidentifying as, quote, modernity. Is this move towards accuracy and precision in the world using numbers, using mathematics, and then mapping that back to things because, hey, you can win a war that way. Well, Napoleon did. He conquered a good portion of the world, also destroyed everything that he touched. That might have been a hint. This is bad, but apparently we didn't get the message. Still better than the French Revolution, which he solved. How do you solve a revolution? You get an emperor. Why? Because you beheaded the king because you're a moron. Oops. You have a bad answer to a worse problem. And you fix the worst problem of the revolution, which had nothing to do with the Catholics, contrary to what the reformers would like to believe, because Protestants are the worst kind of people you can imagine. You end up with these problems around precision, around mathematics. And it actually all flows from that. Not all of it, but a lot of it flows from the preference for accuracy and precision, which is how you get certainty, over relationship, which is how you get things done. So you can be certain or you can get things done. It's up to you. It's up to you. It's an imperfect world. You know how many projects I've given people and that, like, I know they're not going to get done. I know they're not going to get done. And and I'm not so certain of that I'm not going to give them the project because it's a waste of my time to put my time, energy, and attention to it. I'm not so certain of it like that, but I'm pretty certain they're not going to get it done. But you know what? Next time they're faced with a project, because they failed last time, maybe they'll succeed. And my project's not that important, and I could probably do it myself. And that's kind of the magic. You do things that you're pretty sure are going to fail anyway, not because it's going to benefit you, because it's going to benefit them. You put up with difficult people in your chat, not because it's going to benefit you, because it certainly doesn't benefit me at all, but it might benefit them. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But at least you tried. And you know what you get points for? Trying. You know what you don't get any extra points for? Succeeding. You actually get no extra points for succeeding. None. This, I think, is where people are confused. A lot of people will tell me, Mark, you could grow your YouTube channel. And I'm like, the goal of the YouTube channel is not to grow the YouTube channel. Like, if you tell me I have to change my content 1 iota to get 10 times as many subscribers, I'm going to tell you to get bent. That's what I'm going to tell you. Now, there's certain changes that I'll make, like improving the lighting, which I did today, right? There's other things that I'll do, like special guests, like Michu Peugeot, right? I'm willing to do things like that. Although he did me a favor there. I don't know how I got that lucky. But I'm grateful. I'm super grateful. Such a good conversation. So much to think about. But if you said like, oh, do you need to switch your content type to no, I'm not doing it. I'm doing this for my reasons, for purposes that I understand and that I think are important, that I value. Yanga, nature's favorite algorithms. Nature is not an agent in the world. Are brute force. Okay, brute force is not an algorithm. And trial and error, also not algorithms. And when they're combined, no, brute force and trial and error are actually the same thing, but you're talking about it through two different ways. The sky's the limit. The sky is not the limit. That is a big problem. The sky is a location in material reality, and that is not the limit of anything. Sally Joe, learning through failure is an economic learning system. Well, it's the only one we have. So it doesn't really matter. You only learn through failure. Not free, but you definitely learn more by doing. Yeah, you definitely don't learn if you don't do. There's no, I mean, I said this coming up on my video, on my conversation. There is no learning from books, and there's no learning from talking to other people. If you're reading a book and you buy into what the book says and you do what the book says, you did what you were told. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, that's actually very useful because you've taken somebody else's experience and valued it highly enough not to make those mistakes for yourself, because that would be stupid. Same with conversation. Like, if you talk to me and you say, look, Mark, I have this project and I was thinking that the approach that I want to use is, I want to get this data into a database. And I go, no, don't put that data in a database. Put it in a key value pair store because it'll be faster there. And you do it, you didn't learn anything. Now, you might learn how to put data in a key value pair store, but you didn't learn why the database was bad unless you also put it in a database and then found out I was right, which is fine too. Like, then you actually learned something. But if you just did what you were told, you didn't learn anything. And it's good to have conversations and find out what the options are. And you won't find out all the options, but I mean, maybe you'll find out all the options, but it's unlikely. But you might find out more options than you knew about. It's good to expand the state space, as it were, if you want to talk all technical. And it's the problem. Like, all these guys, they talk about, oh yeah, with the internet, you can just introduce yourself to these. Those guys are all charlatans and they're all clowns, and they say that. But when people come around and ask them questions, very good questions that they can't answer, they don't engage. I know that because I'm the guy who does that. It's not the only thing I do, and I don't do it to everybody because I can't. But I do it to a lot of people. Raviki saw our model. Like, we had a conversation with him about it, and he rejected it according to him because of his own ego. That's fine. I'm not mad. Also, can't find a problem with my model that I'm presenting to you. Maybe that's because it's not wrong. That's going to be my first go-to. You're the smart guy. It's your work that we're expanding on. If you can't find a problem with it, fair enough. But then rejecting it, I don't know. I know the problem's not with me at that point, though. That's good to know. I don't know that the model's right, but I at least know the problem, the reason why we can't progress and cooperate, has nothing to do with me. I did my work. You don't get extra points for success, but you do get all the points you're going to get for trying. The people tell me all the time, Mark, what you're doing doesn't work. And I'm like, what do you mean work? What are you talking about? If you reach out your hand to help somebody and they fall, that ain't your fault. all the points are in reaching out your hand. There's no extra points after that point. Because if you don't reach out your hand, that's your responsibility. All points deducted. Now maybe you'll see, like now go watch my videos. Whole new flavor maybe. Maybe you start to figure it out. I don't know. Some people have figured it out, right? Castle, Ixnon, Jesse to some extent, right? Some of these people see what's happening and they're like, oh, and then they buy into the framework and they're like, oh my goodness, what can we do with this framework, right? And then Ixnon in particular can talk way better about some of the stuff than I can, right? Castle too, like they just bang and come out with this stuff. It really annoys me, right? Because they see it, they see the framework and they go, oh, it's really powerful and I can fit it in my head. Can't fit Vervaeke stuff in your head. Like Vervaeke can't fit that stuff in his head. It's all nonsense anyway. My frameworks, you fit them right in your head. Boom, anybody can. Because they're super simple. Because they're based on all that stuff that everybody talks about. Not the Neoplatonics, no such thing. But Plato? Yeah. The more Plato and Aristotle I read, I go, oh yeah, oh, okay. Maybe I read them. I don't know. It looks really familiar though. It's very simple. And it explains everything. Very simple. These complicated formulas that Curtis Yarvin comes up with, black church, blue church, purple church. It's nonsense. You can't just take churches and apply them to every layer of reality. You know, oh, they're fractal layers of reality. We can just overlay them on top of one another. No, first of all, they already exist in parallel. And one is on top and not at the bottom. I don't know why I'd have to say that. That should kind of be obvious, but I guess it's not. Because you're starting from the middle out thinking. You're starting from yourself. That's the middle. There was stuff here before you. There'll be stuff here after you. Therefore, you are always the middle. And then they try to figure out the world. No. No. And then they go, oh, there's a meaning crisis. Well, you caused it. Like it wasn't there before. Did you think about that? Oh, no. Nobody ever thinks about that. Oh, what caused the meaning crisis? I don't know. Carving up the world and destroying all the relationships and connections in the world that were already there, that all you had to do was cooperate with. But no, you want to uphold and process everything. That's what causes the meaning crisis. It's the rejection of the created order into which you were born. The container which you are in. You're not getting out of the container. You can't step outside the container and look at it, even though the science people insist you can. It ain't gonna happen. That's how it works. That's how anything works. That's how anything works that you've ever experienced. I'm bigger than this cup, so I have a perspective on it that the cup doesn't have on itself. Yeah, sure, maybe, but it's smaller than you. No kidding. That doesn't work for all the things that are bigger than you, hyper objects, egregores, whatever the hell you want to call them, just irrelevant, stupid language. Egregore is an occult term, explicitly. I wish these people would study a smidgen of history before they talk. Oh, or even look something up first. But they don't. They just fool you with big words and fancy talk and abstractions and self-reference and contradictions. They go, oh, there's an inherent contradiction. You know why that works? Because when they tell you there's an inherent contradiction, you go, aha, I knew something was wrong. I know something's wrong. There's a contradiction. They're telling you now, they're identifying what's wrong. No, they're not. They're identifying that something's wrong and they're putting words to it. And you're going, ooh, words, magic. Ooh, magic words. Words are magic, just not in that way. Right? And then you're like, there's a contradiction. That's what's going on. And then they go, but we can make the contradiction go away. We can take the thesis and the antithesis and make a synthesis. Gobbledygook, nonsense talk. Of course you can't do that. It's dumb. It's really dumb, actually. It's surprisingly stupid. I'm surprised anybody ever fell for that one. I'm actually genuinely shocked. But it feels good. It's like, aha, I knew something was wrong. And then here they are with a solution. Yay! And the solution's so abstract you can't implement it anyway. So even if they were right, which they're certainly not about anything, probably, but certainly not about that, they're not helpful. But it feels good to have an answer because now you have having mode. Dr. Vervaeke talks about that. An answer. Ha! If you're just smart enough, like they are, you can figure out how to use it. Yeah, Vervaeke's still trapped in the meaning crisis. Like he ain't getting out. Jordan Hall, he can go to church all he wants. Still in the meaning crisis. He ain't getting out. Now that could change. I hope that changes for both of them. Like I'd like my teacher back, please. Ricky's such a good teacher. It's like, bro, stick to the teacher thing. You're so awesome at it. Like it's a crime that you're not still doing that. A crime. Crime against all humanity. Like go back to teaching. Because the world needs you. So be better. The thing you're doing now, you suck at. You suck at it. That's all. It's terrible. Terrible at it. It's whatever. Almost everyone's terrible at that same thing. It's not a big deal. Like just get over it. Be better. And it's the problem. People don't want to be better. It requires them to change. They want a contradiction that they can resolve. They can have an answer. That's how all of that works. Eric Weinstein, James Lindsay. Oh, it's the wokeness. Oh no, the wokeness. It's spread to the other side. There were never two sides, you Muppet. And no, it didn't spread to the other side because the thing you're describing isn't there. But everybody wants to hear it. They want to hear, oh yeah, of course, the two sides are equal. That's why I can't change my position because the two sides are equal. So it does me no good to change sides. Besides, I'm in the middle. But I don't know what that is. But I don't need to know what that is. I'm just not them and not them. So I'm safe because I don't have any of the bad features of those guys. And I don't have the bad features of those other guys. That's just self-righteous fundamentalism. Period. End of statement. 0% different. That's all that is. And you wonder, where's the madness come? That's where the fucking madness comes from. 0% hard. That's the madness. And what do? We talk about it more. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. Now, I'm working on another book because I can. Probably won't make any progress on it this month because we're going to Ireland. And that's soaking up a lot of time. And we've got a new. I know I got to get the other book on the website. I understand that I failed. It's been rough. So I'm gonna get the book up before I leave for Ireland for sure. It won't. We have to do pre-sales because we have to get so many printed first. So we're gonna do pre-sales for like a month. So it probably won't be available, but it'll be available for Christmas. That's probably how that's gonna work out. It'll be available for like December. I'll probably try to get it shipped by the end of November or something. And Castle's busy helping me work away on that, so he's awesome. So yeah, we just have to work out a few things. I'll get it on the store. That's the solution to the meaning crisis. And actually, it's 2 books, but one book at a time. There's a book and a workbook, and then I'm working on another book that is. Yeah, maybe we should have done that one first. I don't know. But we're working on more stuff. And we're working on the game. Hopefully Ixnam will give us an update someday. Again, I love his updates. That's how you solve these things. The way you cannot ever solve them is by talking about them. The more you talk about them, the more you make things worse. How do you know that, Mark? Because talking about things correlates perfectly with things getting worse. Not that hard. In fact, talking about things causes people to get shot. I know no one noticed that, kind of. Actually, they haven't figured it out. They're like, aha, obviously Charlie Kirk got shot. Therefore, we need more Charlie Kirks. And I'm like, are you okay? Are you off some important medication? Or are you taking some medication that you shouldn't be? and then you're going to tell me about logic. I'm not like, I don't know what to do with those people. I actually don't know what to do with those people. I have no idea. I don't have a plan for that. I don't even have an expectation of what might possibly work. Like, if that's your problem, and I've been saying this on Twitter to a bunch of people, like, I'm glad you're noticing this problem of people are like this. How do we integrate them into our society? Like, I actually know the answer. Nobody's been smart enough to ask, right? I know if I find somebody smart enough to ask, I don't know, Mark, do you have any ideas? And I go, why, yes, I do know, right? I do have some ideas, right? No one's smart enough to do that. It's a filter. Everything I do is a filter. Everything I do is a filter. The filter. Who can I cooperate with? Who has the level of understanding to know what to do and to be able to do it? Right? Who's actually going to do anything? Like, who's going to come in and like play test my game? Oh, Ixnat is, because he understands the work. Who's going to help me manifest the book? Oh, Castle is, because he understands the work. Who's going to work on the Matrix stuff with me, even if they don't end up doing the video with me, which is a great disappointment? Jesse is, because he understands the work. Isn't that hard? It's a filter. If you're being filtered out, that sucks for you. It doesn't suck for me. It just makes me waste less time, which is important because I have books to write. Sally Joe, got to stop asking how much we can make and start looking for how solid our communities can be, right? How much we can serve them, right? While making a home that's a refuge for yourself, your family, and your friends. Well said, Sally. See, you've gotten so much better. How did that happen? If you just make money, that's all you have anyway. Yeah. And you can't take it with you. So, and you may think you can buy things with money, but if you get money, let's suppose you had $6 million in wealth, someone can take that away from you, or a couple of people, to be fair. But also, I know that because that already happened to me. So you may think money can solve a problem, but actually it just puts a big target on your back. And if you're not prepared because you don't have the right network in place and the right support network and stuff, someone's going to take it away from you. So go earn all the money you want at the World Poker Tournament or whatever, or by programming or whatever the hell you're going to do, and see what happens. Go ahead, see what happens. I already know what happened. It already happened to me. And see if you can die bitter like most people do when they get, things stolen from them. I worked with a guy for a year, and he was nothing but bitter because people stole his millions of dollars from him, just like me. Millions of dollars. And all he wanted to do was start our new business. And I tried to help him, but he was unhelpable. Lots of people tried to help him. Nope. Couldn't do it. He couldn't do it because he was bitter and upset about the money that had been stolen from him because he didn't have a network in place that could help him. And so people just ripped him off and took all his money. He has a beautiful property, has some nice cars. He's got a nice old Ferrari, a couple of motors and transmissions. He still does some work. He's part of one business at least, but he really wants this other business to succeed, and he wants to build it from the ground up. And he could. I gave him in fact, I have the printouts. Like, I have the printouts, the entire software architecture I handed him. Couldn't do it. Too busy being angry. Too busy listening to the wrong people and getting upset at me for trying to help him. Like, okay, whatever, bro. You're in my life. It's not wasted, right? It feels like a waste. Put myself in debt. Try and make his thing happen. I thought I was going to go. I thought we were good. I thought we were going to get 10, 20 million in investment money easy. Everybody else thought that too. It's like, man, all you have to do is this, and that was it. And I mean, it would have been hard because you would have, like, when you're doing pitches to investors, it's just like pitch onto the next pitch. This is one day, right? Pitch onto the next pitch, onto the next, over and over again. was not looking forward to that. But also, like, I was willing to do it. Didn't work out. Didn't work out. The other business that I'm trying to resurrect, same deal. Great idea. Fleshed out the whole thing. Didn't want that thing. I'm like, okay, well, I thought you wanted a business that's going to make money, but if you want to do something you don't know what that is and you don't have the resources, you can try that too. Good luck. Everybody loved that idea too. Had an investor. Still have that investor probably. Sally Joe can't see the value in lots of things while they are happening. Yeah, well, that's the other thing. If you're always trying to calculate certain value in the future, never going to see the value around you. And it doesn't matter because all you have to do is the right thing all the time. And eventually that will work. And the problem is it doesn't work right away and it doesn't work the way you expect. But if you just drop your damn expectations, this is why Stoicism and Epicureanism are so good. Just drop your expectations. All of a sudden, things work. And man, I was never an over planner, but I dropped my planning way down. You wouldn't believe the stuff that works out. I'm like, how did that even happen? I couldn't have planned that. Beyond God, I was thinking of a marketing joke earlier where the pitch was always to have a pitch to pitch. Well, that's true. It keeps them on their toes. That's what most entrepreneurs do. They always have pitches. Some of them do that. They have several pitches. And they just keep doing it. And sometimes that works because anything could work in the right circumstances. I'm looking forward to there's a whole from conception to investment thing that they're doing at the Entrepreneur Center down here, which I would have signed up for, but part of it was going on in October when I'm going to be away in Ireland. So I said, I'll wait for the next one. It's totally free too. The number of free things, the number of grant opportunities, the number of people that will just give you their time. Like when I was working with this other guy, like this guy we were working with had sold multiple companies for hundreds of millions of dollars. And he was giving away his time to us for free. $0. Top end consulting from a guy who'd been there. That's available all over the place. The Entrepreneur Center, free. All kinds of information and right. All you have to do is show up and do the work. And as I have indicated tonight, they know the same thing. It's a filter for who will show up and do the work. Not people who will know about it or talk about it or think about it or be certain that it will or won't work. It's about the people that will show up and do the work. And that alone may be insufficient, but at least it's a good filter for who to bring to the next step or who to try again with. When you start understanding that there's all these filters going on and that you're being filtered out because you suck, because you refuse to do the one thing that is required of you, which is to be better. If you feel like you're being filtered out, you are, and it's on you, and you can fix it if you focus on you and being better. Why should you do that? Because the world needs you. Then everything changes. Just do the work. Do the boring, stupid, useless work. Because that's where all the value is. Because no one does it. All right. That's all I got to say. I hope that was clear enough. I can't make it any clearer. Go watch all my videos and keep in mind, it's a filter. Maybe you'll figure it out. I don't know. Look, yeah, next week we should have a stream. I don't know if I'll actually manage a topic. I couldn't this week. But yeah, next week we should have a topic of some kind. If you've got suggestions, put them in the comments. I'm also probably going to do the Matrix video next week at some point, probably Saturday or Sunday. I got to double check the calendar, but I don't think I have anything. So I think I'll just do all the work this week. I'll go through the notes. I think I have 2 sets of notes to go through, but whatever. I'll add to them. I'll do all the work myself, or all the remaining work. Jesse did a bunch of work already. Thank you, Jesse. And I'll get the video done, and I'll probably do it as a live stream. And if you want to see that, encourage me, comment, tell me, whatever, and we'll get it done. And I will still cry about it because Jesse's not going to do it with me, unless he changes his mind somehow and shows up, which would be awesome. But everybody have a good week. Be better. Watch more of my videos. Watch out for the conversation coming out, although it might be a couple of weeks. There's strategic reasons for that. There are requests being made by other people I have no control over. Also, they're super wise people, and I agree with them. So even though the talk is done, it will not be released right away. And I do apologize for that, but also that's how things have to get done. And if you don't understand why, that's the filter. Have a great week and be better.